Stays in the accounts, right? None of the, like, interest income goes into the general fund? It all stays with the investment accounts?
Not all of it. Some of it stays with the particular accounts, and that's all mandated by law, something like the scholarship
Yep.
funds, that interest will stay with that. The cemetery funds, that stays with that. OPEB stays within OPEB. It's not necessarily available like a typical general fund, but all the general fund money would stay. And if there's not a law saying it has to stay with the fund, it would go with the general fund.
So it does get swept to the general fund?
Well, it's not as sweeping per se, but yes.
Okay.
What's an example of a fund that will return its income to the general fund?
I think the stabilization does. That's all done.
The general
through interest.
stabilization fund.
All yeah, well, the water and sewer stabilization type funds, they would not, they would stay with them.
So if the general stabilization fund is relatively conservatively invested, let's say for the sake of argument, 70% in fixed income, then we would recognize that 70% of the investment that generates income would go back to the general fund. It wouldn't be used to grow the stabilization fund, which would then...
No, it'd have to be an appropriation if the general fund.
Kevin, there's a policy to think about.
I thought it followed it, actually. I actually thought that money followed the stabilization. I could be wrong about that. I thought it did.
It's worth clarifying.
Yeah.
So what would you?
But the reserve, for
money-
example, the reserve, the funds like the rec fund and those, that money would sweep back to the general fund. Any interest that gets earned on that money. That's all. None of that's aggressively invested. That's just in, what do we have in money market accounts or just that kind of stuff.
Right.
That money would return to the general fund and any kind of the special funds. We have it all broken out. I guess.
It's just a substantial amount of money,
Right.
Sure.
and we should just clarify where we're putting it.
Yeah, exactly, and frankly, if you think about it from that standpoint, if our goal is to build our reserves, and in fact what we're doing is bleeding our reserves and hitting it with a line item every year, we're essentially bailing out the boat to pour the water from the bow to the stern. It doesn't make any sense. Why not let the capital grow for itself, if we
To a
have
large
the option
extent,
to do it?
it does. It stays in there. I mean, I don't move money out of the account to
This isn't
the interest every single year. It's and there may be some, clarification between a bank account versus a general ledger account. If it's deemed a general ledger account, it doesn't matter which one it's in.
We should probably clarify it and then think about what we want to have happen.
I was under the impression that money in the dedicated fund stays, but I could be wrong.
Rather than getting
We'll check.
riled up about
Check.
something neither of us have any sure clarification on, let's just identify it. And if the board wishes to take it up as a topic of conversation or a policy, then we can talk about it then.
Would this be a policy that we could put within one of our existing policies, or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just mark it.
so
We have
why don't you
investment.
take a look at this question in the light of our, because it'd be one of the policies this would apply to. Take a look at it, see if it looks appropriate to make any changes there, and then you and I can go over it and see if we can put it on an agenda if there's some substantive change to be made, okay? Go ahead.
I really didn't have anything else. Unless you have any questions on that or concerns.
Looks like we've done pretty good on these.
If you have a moment and you can give us a bullet point electronically of what you just presented, that'd be great. Yeah, the performance pieces.
Usually we have that in the package, don't we?
It's in our package.
Is it in the package?
Yeah, I'm looking
Then I
at it right now.
apologize.
Yeah.
So there's
Bear
the
with
big
me.
investment quarterly report, but there's also the
with
executive
me.
summary, which is only a few pages. And it has the performance page right in there.
No, you're right. I moved right over it. I apologize.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
anything else?
Anything else, Phil? Paula, thank you
Thanks,
very
Paula.
much.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to another great report next quarter.
We're trying.
That's why.
Okay, the next item is the appointments. I'm wondering, we are moving ahead here.
I never saw it because it all disappears.
I guess, I just, if anybody was gonna show up for it, that's all.
Well, you have one,
Yes.
you wanna clarify where we are on the resident piece at least?
There's 2 residents, both have been contacted twice by email, once by phone, and I've heard from you, Mr. Jeffers, but I didn't hear from Mr. Lucid, Stephen, I guess it is Lucid.
Okay.
So we haven't heard from Mr. Lucid, we could do the.
I didn't hear back saying that he was gonna come or not, I gave
So-
the exact time.
Even though it's a little early, we could do the, because Mr. Jeffers is here already, I'd like to. All right, so why don't we go ahead and do this, and we'll address the resident one first. Now, we've gone before, we know what the charge is, and these, we filled these positions before, so this is a question with 2 people who are applying for one of the resident applications to this. So from a process point of view, why don't we ask anybody who's here, who's Mr. Jeffers, to just come forward and talk about his interest in his application for affordable housing. Welcome.
Thank you. Rob
Nice to meet-
Jeffers, 18 Spring Street.
Very nice to meet you, Mr. Jeffers.
thank you.
Jeffers. We have gone over your resume before. We're glad to finally see you here. I hadn't met you, but we've been impressed by your resume and your interest in our town government, so I want to thank you for that and invite you to go ahead and speak about your application and why you're interested in affordable housing, maybe what you see for goals and so forth.
Yeah. So, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm very interested in getting more involved with the town of Cohasset. We moved here 3 years ago, me and my 2 children and wife, and it's really welcomed us as a new home. We really feel at place here, and we recently just purchased a home down on Spring Street. So I always like to give back to the community. I think this is one opportunity to do so. I think you see in my background. I guess one thing I bring to the committee if I was to get appointed is I am a little bit of an outsider, only being here for 3 years, so maybe bring a little different perspective, can challenge some assumptions. A long business career. I've been working in banking for a little over 20 years. I've ran large groups, and it's really helped me appreciate that, anything you do has consequences. You have to think about revenue, you have to think about cost, you have to make sure that it's sustainable, and really look at, everything's multifaceted. It's not necessarily, simple. Also, I did serve on the board for Jersey Cares and was elected president of that. That was a group that was responsible for combining corporations, volunteers, and organizations that needed volunteers. And a lot of the things that we would do would be like playground improvements. So we built really good relationships with corporations, and actually were able to get them to donate, people and money to build a whole new playground. And the way we kind of sold that was we're creating a team building exercise, and we kind of wrapped that into saying, you would be paying Ernst & Young or PwC $60,000-$70,000 for this. Why don't you just pay for all of the equipment, and we'll have a great day for your team. So I try to find different ways for solutions, and I think getting to the specifics of this committee, that's probably what's needed. It's like we don't want to give things away. I mean, I think we have to make sure that we're protecting the town's assets and looking at different ways of partnering with businesses to eventually develop areas. And I think it's an important time right now for Cohasset as it comes to affordable housing. I recognize we've heard that the Avalon is coming off, and then we potentially will have less than 10%, and so therefore we're going to have the potential 40B developments. And I think, as the town, as a resident of this town, I think we want to be in control of what happens and not necessarily have developers come in that we wouldn't have as much control. But recognizing we need to work with people, and it's a two-way street trying to find good solutions. I can talk forever, so I'll pause there.
Well, it's very interesting what you said so far. Okay, is there any questions from the board?
At the moment, no,
Mr.
although
Jeffers?
I'd simply underscore the chairman's observation that we certainly appreciate your willingness to step forward and lend a hand. This, the initiative itself has had fits and starts in town in the past. No matter the outcome, the one underscoring feature of it is that the people involved in it have carried a passion for affordable housing and its and its inclusion in our long-term plans. And I think that is the one thing that we should be carrying from anybody who's worked on it in the past. But having said that, the town, I think, is and certainly the board is asking for your group or the group you're looking to become part of to think about this deeply, broadly, with respect to the town itself, its impact, and just as importantly, how we can use what's most attractive about the town to bring it forward. So we certainly appreciate your interest and your willingness to get involved, and I suspect you'll spend a lot more time in shirt sleeves and a sport coat. So.
Yeah.
Paul?
Thank you for putting your name in and offering your advice and talent. I'm thoroughly impressed with your resume. Looking at it from the point of view of the board, we're trying to and hoping to get a broad group on this. People who've been for a while, people who have banking, some who may have human resource talent. I think your situation fits in nicely with a little bit of an outsider, per se, new to the area, and the banking background, which is there with I'll also say the University of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Sorry, the family went there, so.
No, it's good school. Yeah. Not that great of a football
Sorry.
team, but it's good.
Any other questions, comments? Do I hear a motion relative to the resident application for affordable housing?
I move we accept his application for the
His
position.
name, please.
I move that we accept Robert Jeffers for the position on the resident.
For affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
Steering committee.
Sure, thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? No. Tracy, that's unanimous.
Welcome aboard.
Congratulations,
Thank you very
welcome,
much.
thank you for serving.
Look forward to it.
Did you
Thank
get
Look
a copy
forward
of
to
the
it.
charge?
Sure.
I'll give you that.
Thank you.
Take home.
See, if my daughter wanted to know if I was gonna get home there, so.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Familiarize.
He will, he will.
You're getting a lot of
Not yet.
And your children, you haven't given your names to?
This is
welcome.
Adriana and this is Lydia.
That's
Hi.
Leah and Petriana.
Hello, ladies.
Adriana.
Welcome, I'm really glad that you've come to join us at our town meeting, and thank you for letting us use some of your father's time to contribute to the community. We're proud of him, and we're pleased to have you all.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I promised them ice cream. So.
Oh, there you go, that's the deal.
Bribery works.
I want to work that into my contract, it works.
Ice cream?
Ice cream theater.
You don't
I
need
need
ice cream.
ice cream.
I'm not gonna work that in your contract.
You have 3 reps now for the committees.
Yes. So, we have had applications come in for these other 3, we've had submissions in writings anyways from the other 3 that we are appointing tonight. One is the planning board representative, one is the conservation commission, and one is the council on elders. From a procedural point of view, why don't we take one at a time? Unless anybody Okay, why don't we go ahead and cover the planning board representative first? It's just, yes, Steve?
I have a procedural question.
Go.
Do we need to appoint anybody?
You should ratify the others, yes. Because you do have a CPC and others as a matter of course. So.
Okay.
So, we'll go ahead and do the planning board first, and the representative that's been submitted is David Dryden, who's a member of the planning board. I don't know if Mr. Dryden is here or not, but his writing is in. So are there any questions, comments, or any motions?
I move,
Go ahead, Diane.
I move that we appoint David Ryan as the planning board representative to the Affordable Housing Steering Committee.
Do I hear a second? And any discussion? All those, there's no discussion, then all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, no. Mr. Dryden is appointed. Congratulations, Mr. Dryden. Thank you for serving. The next is the Conservation Commission, Jack Creighton, who's a member of the Conservation Commission, and this one is now up. Is there any commentary?
I just have a question on this. This was the only one that doesn't look like they took a vote. So if we could just reach out and ask them to codify it on their end in terms of a vote of the commission.
Even if we vote on it tonight?
Remember that we asked for an appointment.
Right.
How that
Right.
committee selects
Okay.
their member is up to them.
All right, that's fine. The other two did, that's the only reason I felt like it would just be cleaner, but.
Actually, I tend to go with what Steve is saying on this, because that, Chris had pointed out to me, because we did look at this, and it does, the charge says, please make an appointment and let us know.
Okay.
They let us know. I'd rather, so,
Okay.
and we have heard from the chair of the Conservation Commission has given the name, so. All right, so, any other discussion, questions? Is Mr. Creighton here? No, I don't see any here, so. Any other comment?
Move that we appoint Jack Creighton to the Affordable Housing Steering Committee as the representative from the Conservation Commission.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Tracy, that's unanimous. The next is in the Council of Elder Affairs appointment, is Sue Reagan. Is there anybody, is Sue, I don't see here, is anybody here who's gonna address that? Would you come forward and identify yourself, please?
Paul Kears, 39 Old Coach Road, Chairman of Cohasset Elder Affairs.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of Sue Reagan, who couldn't make the appointment this evening. Short notice, we had our board meeting on Monday, and we had asked our board to evaluate the position for the Housing Committee. So we had circulated amongst the 12-member board, asked for volunteers, and Sue Reagan had volunteered to fill that seat.
I witnessed it.
So, and Kevin was there too.
So it's legit.
Yeah.
It was approved, and Sue is a very active member here in
Yes.
Cohasset, lives right here on Beach Street, and so there's no doubt that she'll have the best interest of those residents that are seeking affordable housing.
I believe so, yes. Good, I'm glad it's fine, strong application. Any questions, comments, or motions?
I'll move that we appoint Sue Reagan as the representative from the Council on Elder Affairs to the Affordable Housing Steering Committee.
Second.
Okay, is there first and second? Any further discussion?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Where does that leave you, Paul?
So I'm filling a seat as a resident.
Okay. Is that something we had originally appointed as a resident?
No.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
And now
All
the
right.
committee is technically, well, upon this vote, the committee's full.
Okay.
So the only question I have is housekeeping on, it appears that all of the positions but one resident position have been filled.
It was just filled tonight.
We just filled it.
Mr. Jeffers?
So there were 2 resident positions open?
No, there's 2 applicants for 1 position.
2 okay, so they're all filled in one. Does the notice go out for when the first meeting is to be held?
You're stealing my next question.
Well, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work with Tracy on a date.
Can you excuse me? I think, do we have a motion here somewhere?
Yeah, I think you finished voting.
Yeah,
No, we did,
let's
right.
finish this motion. Did we have a motion?
You did.
Yes.
There's a
Second.
motion and a
Any
second.
question? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. It's unanimous, okay.
So I'm going to work with Tracy on identifying a date that seems to work with less conflict. We'll contact all the members, kind of poll them for availability, and then my office will call a meeting. We'll let all of you know as well. We'll post it publicly. They'll have their organizational meeting, they'll elect their officers, and then go from there.
And it's right there in the charge, you complete charge, right, yeah.
Correct, and we'd like to have a subject matter expert on 40B and affordable housing, so that.
First meeting?
Right,
That's
so
not a good
that
idea.
everyone knows what affordable housing is. A lot of people are guessing at what it is, or everyone has an idea of what they think it is. So I think with having a committee now in town chartered for this, I think we're gonna get a lot of opinions from outside the committee as to what they think affordable housing is. So if we have a subject matter expert, kind of lay the foundation of what it is and
As
what
part
it
of your
isn't.
introductory meeting,
There was a person that did that great presentation. Was it
MAPC
Yeah.
presentation,
She
the
did-
one, yeah, she did a great
We all
job.
just received an email from someone as well, offering support.
So why don't we let Chris can handle arranging that, and that'll be your first meeting, you'll name your offices and you'll be
If
off.
you have any thoughts about who that would be, please send it to my office and we'll reach out and try. Well, we'll set up around that person's availability.
Or it could be a second meeting, but I think the residents of the town should be aware of what
40B
it is, or
Requirement.
more importantly, what it isn't.
I think if you could get from, what was the committee that she made a presentation from? Was it the concert?
It was CPC, and it was
CPC.
somebody from, the Massachusetts Affordable Housing.
I have her
Here you go.
Trust
We'll have
or
her name,
something.
yeah.
I just forwarded you
We
the
have like a
email.
packet from her.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the
Mass
other-
Housing Partnership, Citizens Housing and Planning
She made a very good
Association.
presentation at that.
All right, I'll work on that,
Yeah.
and we'll be getting those.
First time I had a chance to look at that.
So how often are we gonna get updated, Chris?
Not from this group.
Yeah,
I would say that they should update you, I don't know, quarterly.
yeah, I'd like to see that.
It's not, it doesn't formally say, but there should be something we'll adopt, they should be adopted the first meeting.
So we can,
And it doesn't have to be elaborate, but just, you know, where are you, what are you thinking?
You want us to follow the holiday before.
Yeah.
okay, Diane?
Yeah, just one other question, I think just in terms of when you have the kickoff meeting, it would be very good, you could task Dave Dryden with it, but it'd be very good for somebody from the planning board or somebody from the town of Cohasset to have a real sense of where we're at with respect to affordable housing in town and the 40B issues, because that, talk about, I mean, you can ask 10 different people in town who knows, and the percentage is very different, so try to
There is-
get some actual data.
There is real data. and-
Right.
And when the town does meet its obligation
That's
pursuant to state laws, we're actually updated on the state's website, it's 10.6.
6.3, I
Yeah,
think,
yes.
right. But then the question is, where is that going? Is that going away? Is it gonna be 10.63 in perpetuity, or in 3 years it's gonna go? So I think just having somebody speak to that, so they know how to launch.
Let me see what we can pull together. So we'll probably try to do something late this month or early October. Probably take a couple of weeks to pull it together.
Great.
Great.
We'll make sure it's publicly noticed, let Amanda know, and anyone who wants to come can.
Sounds great.
So,
Fabulous.
And the center is available.
we're gonna use it anyway, so it's a much nicer facility.
Great.
Besides, we're doing it in AV, we wanna have a nice drop-down screen,
Hopefully so.
nice fresh coffee.
Yes, exactly. All are welcome.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
appreciate it. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a joint meeting of the sewer commission. There's a vacancy. Now, I just want to discuss procedurally first. What is, we have a 3-member elected board. One member has resigned. According to the law, what has to occur in a situation like this is the board that's involved, which in this case is the sewer commission, and ourselves, come together, we all go into session, we then essentially, like, for example, tonight we'll become a board then of 7 for this issue. And then we'll go over this, and we have applications here, and make an appointment. Now, in terms of the way we conduct this, the way we've done recently, and the way we'll do it, is we'll have the chair of the board give an overview as to what, the water commission, the sewer commission does, any major issues, and an overview of what the situation is there, and then perhaps with some characteristics of what you're looking for and what you need for replacement and so forth. And so once we've heard from you from the overview point of view, we'll then ask if there's anybody who has applied who's actually physically here, we will listen to them, okay? And once that's done, we'll bring you gentlemen back up again, and then we would want to hear from you what your recommendation would be as to what you would like to see. And then with that done, we'll then go into a deliberation phase. Anybody can ask questions, whatever they want. And then once that's concluded, we'll see if there's any motion for a board member. And as a board of 7, 4 votes will be what is needed to make an appointment. Is that clear? And any questions?
Board of 6.
Yes.
You said 7. Board of 6. Oh, I'm sorry, 5 and 2. Sorry, but no.
5 and 2 is,
Never mind.
you just said.
You okay? Okay.
Imaginary numbers.
It's 7, yeah, we're at 7.
I ran all last year, unfortunately.
So we're in session, and we don't need to go into session for this. Okay, you need to call your board session.
No, we are not.
You need to.
You need to go into session. Make a motion.
Make a motion that we open our session of the school board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No debate?
No, it's simple with two.
I'm
Okay.
gonna defer to Bill to start, and then I'll add some.
You'd like to make a comment too? Okay. All right, so the
So,
overview from the chief.
well, first of all, thank you very much for having us. Again, Bill McGowan and Wayne Sawchuk from the Sewer Commission. I've given everyone a bit of some talking points. I'm not gonna go through the recommendation until we come back again, as you said. But just some history. We have been running we had 3 board members up until about 3.5 months ago. We had also a qualified sewer administrator that resigned sometime in the middle of November of 2015. So we have been running at a real disadvantage. Wayne and I, after Brian left, have to pick up a lot of the slack. We are actually very, very lucky to have Michelle Leary, who was in the back row, as our new sewer administrator. She's very good, but we just threw her into this sewer pit, no pun intended, and needs a little coaching to get up to speed. And that will be the basis of our recommendation. A lot of the things that are coming up in the town, I think that without getting into them tonight, and when we met at the senior center, I made some mention of them, are going to require, I think, somebody who's done this before, and somebody who can easily get into this position quickly, come up to speed quickly, and then help us. As I mentioned in my last point down here, we need somebody who can help us to help us. So that is my piece, and Wayne, if you want to add
Just,
some.
I don't want to interrupt you, but just to make a clarification on this, so that everybody does know that what we're looking for in making the appointment tonight is an appointment until the next election, which essentially is until next May. So this is an appointment for 6, 7, 8 months or something
Well,
like that.
I was going to make that
Oh.
note in back, that this is only for an interim position.
I just want to make sure it's clear to the public too.
Yeah.
Right. I want to just mention a little bit about what you asked about. And basically, normally, as you heard, we run with 3 commissioners and an administrative assistant. And we have someone that operates the sewer treatment plant on Elm Street, and we have roughly 1,800 residents on sewer connections. So it's a $2.5 million venture for the town, and it is an important job that the commissioners to actually work between our consulting engineer and what the plant operator is doing. And we're in a couple of significant projects right now. We just finished, obviously, the $13 million Little Harbor sewer project, which was something that was going on for 35 or so years. That is all done, and everybody's connected now. And in the past year, we've some of the times when you're the least, under the biggest gun, the most important things happen. So one of the things that did happen was that Hull raised their rates for sewer disposal by 30%, and it was basically starting the beginning of this year without really telling us when it was the first billings and stuff were going to go. With that, and with some additional capacity that we had at the plant, we made some quick decisions to implement some long-term plans, which were to divert a certain amount of flow from Hull to Cohasset. So we were treating this ourselves so that we could maintain the budget of what we were paying Hull for the remaining flow that was still going back to Hull. So we did that, and of course that means that you have to spend some money that you don't normally have to spend and get that going. But for about $30,000, which at one point in time in the past was about $1 million estimate to do what was necessary, and certain people thought we would have to put in pump stations, and there was a little worry going around town that maybe at the end of Forest Avenue there's going to be a 2-story pump station going in and stuff. But with the design and things that were done, we were able to open up valves a little bit at a time and send some flow. So right now about 50% of our flow is going to our own plant, and 50% is still going to Hull. And we've looked at little opportunities to be able to take that remaining 50%, which currently goes gravity to Hingham, and then from Hingham it goes to Hull, and then it goes to the plant. So it wasn't a simple thing to get off of Hingham's pipes and change them and get them on the Cohasset pipes. But we've come up with some plans to do that for the future. So that, in a way, is a little bit of an update for the board members that might not know these specific facts and where that's going. The next item that we did, that we just started, was sort of the wholesale conversion of the balance of the inter-run pumps, which were the first pumps that were put in the 1990s and into the early 2001, that were replaced by an E1 pump, which the E1 pump has proven to be a better quality, longer lasting pump, and one that would have more capacity to pump. So we're doing them in the North Cohasset area first, on a wholesale basis with a contract that was went out to bid, and it came in at about $1 million or over $1 million. So we're doing the first portion of that for about $220,000 to get about 60 or so of the pumps changed over. That gives us additional pressure in the system to assist with adding more capacity on that we could take from Hull to Cohasset in the system, because every pump in a low pressure sewer collection system works with the other pumps to keep the flows running as it's going a longer distance and stuff. So that's the sort of the technical aspect. We don't go gravity to a pump station and have a large pump that's sending all the flow to the station. It's all done by small, 1.5-inch diameter pipes from people's houses into a 2-inch pipe that goes to a 3-inch pipe to a 4-inch to a 6-inch force main, and then into a gravity system when it hits the town common area. So that's pretty much how the system works. Now, I mention these two things because we get involved with a significant amount of technical expertise when it comes to collection systems and pressures and pumps and what should you do here and repairs and maintenance. And we think that we understand that two other citizens of the town have volunteered to potentially get on the board, and I've met with both of them. I think they're both great people. They're very, very good. And I think that we found a third person who happened to be a former 10-year veteran of the sewer department, who was working during the entire design and construction phase of the Little Harbor project. And in fact, he was responsible, I think, almost single-handedly, with the approval of the other two board members, to come in about $960,000 under budget from what the low bidder was. That money ended up being lent to the water department to take care of their deficits. So just to give you an idea of where that technology is. If some of you don't remember this, you can go to the town article and you'll see that that transfer that was done. That had to do with the bonding of it. Okay, not cash, but the bonding capabilities, so that they would pay the debt on the amount that we were transferring to them. I think there are some other things out there in terms of, I understand that there's some interest in people wondering whether or not we're going to raise our rates and do different things like that. And I think John's experience with...
What I'd like to do is get to the particular applicant later.
Okay.
If you have any more overview about the commit.
I think that's pretty good.
So again, very, very good, yeah. Okay, great. If nothing other commentary, why don't we want to ask questions now, or do you want to wait till we hear? We'll hear from the next applicant. We'll do all our questions at the end. So we're all set with you for now.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anybody here who's applied for the position who physically wants to talk to us? In other words, any of these three individuals?
I believe both Mr. Beck and Mr. Gangemi had written to the board broadly identifying that neither of them would be available to attend this evening.
Right.
I haven't heard from the third
There's the
applicant.
third individual. Is that individual here? I don't know him, so.
No, he's not.
Oh, they're not. Okay, so
I don't
we now
recall
go into our
seeing
next
third
phase.
application. I don't recall seeing a third
We're not
application.
going to our next phase, and what we'd like to do is hear from the leadership as to where you think we should go on this, and then after that, we're going to open this for selectmen to make commentary and questions.
So I think, just as a quick summary, we think that John Beck is the best suited for this. I mean, the only add that I will put in here is he used to design and run nuclear power plants, so the sewer treatment plant is a step down for him, I think. But I think he's going to be a great benefit to all of us and to our administrator, and I think would be a perfect fit after a couple of weeks of ramp up. So in my opinion, I'm taking this opportunity to ask the board to vote John back in when that comes up.
It's, okay,
Um,
any other?
I had an opportunity, I've been on the board for 8.5 years, and so I was on the board about 5 years when John was on it, and I served both as chairman while he was on it, which was pretty good, and I think he is just an absolute professional that knows what he's doing, is good with numbers. We talk about nuclear scientists as being a sort of a different type of person, and he is very, very meticulous, very, very good. Absolutely has the town's interests at heart, and he's very interested as a ratepayer to make sure that we don't overspend or do anything like that. I think he'd be a good person to have that. Actually, I was very surprised that he was willing to do it for this interim period, because it really is only for the 6 or 7 months remaining until an election happens. So.
Any other comment, anything else?
Almost.
I noticed 2 other people came, does this have anything to do with sewer? Are you folks here? No, okay. All right, with that, next procedure would be to, anybody on the Board of Selectmen have any questions on what we've heard, or dialogue amongst ourselves, because we're now sitting here as a Board of 7, so. Anybody?
I just have one quick question. I know the water department did a fees and
Rate
pricing and rate study. Is that in the plans as far as?
We're definitely gonna look at that, look at it, and it has to, there's several different parts of it, and one is that we currently charge $125 a quarter to people that have Interon pumps, to pay for the replacement of those pumps. Well, questions are coming up, once the pump's replaced, does the person still have to pay the $125? So we need the balance of our analysis to say, in fact, they may have to pay for a year or 2 years, because they're the ones that, are paying for the, they're contributing to have the pumps replaced so that they get a brand new pump that is gonna last. Now you say, why wouldn't all ratepayers pay it? Well, everybody in the Little Harbor District bought all of their pumps at their own expense.
Right.
And
100%.
and so there are different things. Now, I'm not saying right now what's the right thing to do, but I am saying that when people start, send a note in and say, I just had my pump replaced, I want to stop paying, the town has to react to that in some fashion and come up with a policy. So that is actually a rate, it's one of those things that involves rates. The
That
second-
wasn't set up that way, because it was a volunteer, it was a choice that people could make, whether or not they want to go on the Interon pump or not. You held a hearing, which I attended,
Mhm.
and you said you have a choice, you can either get on or get off. The idea was it was supposed to be a temporary program, and the citizens were gonna pay for the pumps, and once they were paid for, it was put away, and you were good. It was insurance, it wasn't an operating expense. So, I just think you should be clear about that, because that was the intent of the program originally, was more of an insurance program than it was an operating program.
Right, but we have one issue that town council is working on now, and that is, we want to be able to give that to the homeowner, so that the homeowner, if they're not going to pay the fee, is going to be responsible from that pump from now on.
Well, and also, you've got to reflect that liability on the books of the sewer department. It's a long-term liability. They've paid for the insurance, and I sat down with Mary the other day and looked at the financials for the sewer department, and there's no associated liability on your books for those pumps. So, that's something you're gonna have to take a look at, in my opinion,
I think that's
to reflect on.
That's what Paul said, it's looking
Yeah.
at different things like that.
And you're right, you're booking that cash into cash flow. Operationally, you've got an operating deficit, you're running a $500,000 operating deficit every year.
This goes to the function.
So, there's some really big financial issues for you guys going forward.
Listen, if you think we are, I certainly hope you
I
share it with Chris.
I don't
and
think
share
it, I know it,
share it with us.
and I'll bring the auditor in, and we can sit down and talk about it. You go look at the financial statements for the town, look at the presentation for the sewer department, and you'll see you're running an operating deficit of $500,000 a year.
It's been that
Now,
way
some of that is a
for years.
non-cash expense and depreciation.
But this has never been brought to me, Jack. Not one single bit has that been brought to the sewer
We've never
commissioner,
heard of it.
brought to Chris, or brought to the accountant, and gotten to us.
I,
Not one time.
Okay.
Okay, Steve, next.
How would you approve a budget at town meeting if that
on
was
it, you have budgeting done two ways. You do it on an accrual basis and you do it on a cash basis. On a cash basis, the sewer department's been running at a deficit for the last 2 calendar years, ending June 30, 2015, and appears to be on track again for the same this year. That's on a cash basis. It's stated in our CAFR. I'm looking at it right now. On a cash basis, you were at a loss of $471,905 end of June 2015. That's just cash in, cash out. All right, revenues are down.
I don't mean to smile, but.
No.
This isn't meant, this isn't meant.
New news
Let me
to
just
me.
say-
This is
Time
not
out.
meant-
Time out.
I got the financial today.
What I'm gonna do is-
This is not meant.
I wanna do is it.
And this has nothing to do with.
Excuse me. These are valid,
What we should do.
excuse me, these are valid, interesting points, but we're here to make an appointment here
Right.
I'm
on
going
this
somewhere with my
position, so.
questions, okay, and this
Well,
observation.
I don't wanna get too far.
Fair enough.
Excuse me, Steve,
Fair enough.
excuse me. Because we don't have this on the agenda for the public to have expected a discussion like this.
Nor are we prepared at all.
Or were they prepared either. So, I wanna caution the questioning here to not get too far into the details of a budget review here. Our main focus here is there's a vacancy, it's a vacancy for about 8 months. We need to fill that vacancy.
I
And I
agree.
want our commentary and the comedy and treatment of everybody on the board here to reflect that.
Fair
Steve?
fair enough. My point in substantiating what my colleague was saying is not to offer by indictment an issue, but rather that I see the issues that reside within the sewer commission at the moment to be largely financial, and you see them to be largely technical, at least by substantiation of Mr. Beck's proposed appointment.
And financially, he was.
Well,
Very good
remember,
at
this goes
finance.
back quite a ways, and that's one of the reasons that I bring it forward. From the perspective, however, of the role of the commissioner, what do you perceive to be the role of the commissioner?
Well, I can answer that. When Brian was with us, we actually would break it up into 3 pieces, okay? So the overall role is to address, keep the sewer plant running on time and making sure everything works. Making sure that we're bringing in sufficient funds to cover all of the expenses that we have. Proper billing, all of that. Individually, we would separate roles. I did most of the contractual things with the plant. Wayne was our archivist and engineer, and Brian did all of our finances. So we had a very logical way of segmenting the work, so we all didn't get overwhelmed.
So you actually see the role of the commissioner to be more operational?
Well, it has to be both operational and financial.
Yeah, we depend
No.
on the town's accountants and people like Chris.
Right.
To keep the financials in order.
No, I understand that. I'm actually talking about it as opposed to a method of governance. You actually see it as operational, and where I'm going with this is, it would seem that you would rely pretty heavily on your engineer, right?
We do.
For a lot of technical questions, both operational and technical questions, like things that would vex you on a given day, pressure in the pipes, as well as overall design and the like. And at the same time, I would assume that the operation of the plant is pretty well covered by the contractor, correct?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, they have, and I don't want to belabor this point, I'd be happy to talk about it later, but we had a situation where they weren't doing what they said they were going to do. And in
Okay.
fact, we thought they wanted to leave the contract and leave town. So we had to remind them of what we're doing. That took about 5-6 months. They wanted to put a very hefty charge on us. We got them down to, I think, about 30 grand. They wanted 200. So there's a lot of this stuff that we are doing, not only just operational financial, but we're also observing all the things that are going on around us, whether it be Rosado Davis or FR Mahoney that maintains the E1 pumps. I mean, we have 4 or 5 vendors that we maintain on a monthly basis. So there's a lot of things that we do that we don't necessarily, list as what our responsibilities are.
Okay. And Wayne, again, I say this to you because I want to be absolutely clear. We agree that the town is a co-financial manager of the enterprises. This is not new news to us. okay, on an operational basis. And as a matter of fact, as you probably are well aware, the revenues for sewer are down this year, all right? And yet your budgets are built on those revenues, okay? And when I come back to this, what I see is that the two of you were elected to a position, along with Brian, to administer the function of the sewer department and a variety of issues that surround that. And those issues go as far afield as where and if we expand, and if so, how, and what's the basis for it, to a grinder pump policy, right, or some sort of low-pressure pump policy. Whether the user base is billed for that, do you cover your costs? Because both of our enterprise funds are set up to be self-supporting, right? They're not set up, I mean, you could set it up for the town to support it as a whole, but they've been set up to be self-supporting, all right? So when I look at this, I understand there's a lot of other issues going on, but one of the things that comes to the fore immediately is that there is a financial issue here. And I understand your point. As commissioners, you're elected to do a job. You're not necessarily elected to come in with a resume, all right, or a calculator or anything else. But I see that there is a need, there is a fundamental need within your commission for a strong financial expertise.
So,
That's my view.
if I can just address that for a minute. Our ability to address finances within the sewer department are only as good as the information that we get back from the town.
Again,
Okay.
I fully understand that, and I'm simply making the larger observation because having been in a role dealing with finance within the town for some period of time, I recognize that can be a challenge.
And I think, to your point about the financial ability, I think that is, critical, obviously, to our operation. But again, I have to reiterate that the ability to come in here and know what's going on in a very short period of time is essential to us. Because we just don't have the time to wait another 6 or 8 months to get somebody in here once we get an elected person.
I want to say one other thing, and I think it's an absolute compliment to Michelle, who's in the back room, to see the skills that she has and what she has already started to do here. And I think just by having an administrative assistant that knows some accounting, that knows all this other stuff, that gets the warrants, that gets the bills paid on time and everything, is absolutely a key part of the finances and has a relationship with the people that she's dealing with here to get the return information that's needed to make sure that we stay on track. But I do want to remind everybody that's looking and stuff, that our budget goes before the advisory board for very good scrutiny. It comes to the selectmen for scrutiny. It goes to our town manager for scrutiny. So if there is something that's wrong, someone like Steve, Jack, have to bring it up in a timely basis. We would love to come back at another day to talk about just finances and have everybody get into it and see what the issue is. Because if there is something that should be addressed with a rate increase rate, now don't forget, there hasn't been a rate increase for 10 years. So sometimes people say, gee, I'd rather increase it 1% a year and have additional money come in.
Just so that
So
you know,
I could-
this is.
Excuse me, hands up, be recognized before you speak.
Well, I didn't know he ceded the floor.
You go,
Thank you.
Steve, and then if you're ready, raise
So
your
that
hand.
it's clear, okay, this subject has been brought up for the last 2 budget cycles by your former chairman, okay? And we are aware of it. We have been aware of it as a board. So I wanted to be clear. And as a matter of fact, the topic as a discussion point for the potential of a rate hike has also been aired, although no action, to my knowledge, has been taken on behalf of the board, or the commission. Thank you. I'm done.
No, thank you, Steve. Jack, did your hand up?
Yes, my hand's up. Look, we're friends offline. I respect both of you. You both give a lot to the town, so this isn't meant as anything personal at all. I think the person who's running the sewer treatment plant is one of the best employees in the town. He's an amazingly bright guy. And that sewer treatment plant, if people haven't been to it and seen how it works, would be amazed, because they do a fantastic job. My deep concern about sewer is just that financial situation. And what I'm trying to do by raising my hand is just make everybody aware that something's gonna have to happen relatively soon, and I think it's gotta be a rate hike. And, you know, I wanted potentially to have the expertise on board to help you guys handle that kind of a situation. And it's both an accounting function and it's a whole bunch of other stuff too. Having said that, you know, you guys are doing the work. I appreciate the fact that you want John working with you. I'm also a good friend with John, and I know John's qualified. I'm gonna defer to what you want, with the caveat that, you know, we've gotta take a look at the financial situation, so we're not in a situation a year down the road where we have to do something drastic and not plan for it.
Well,
That's my big concern.
I think speaking for the board, we appreciate that. I think with John and Michelle, who's got a pretty hefty financial ability, or capability, excuse me, I think we can satisfy any concerns that you have.
Okay.
Paul?
I had a long discussion with both Mr. Gangemi and Mr. Beck, interviewing them on their ability, their desire, their talents. I tend to agree with you. I think Mr. Beck has the background there, which is going to be very helpful, I think, in the next, honestly, next probably 12 months. The reason why I brought up the rate hike, I did not mean to get you guys on the spot, but knowing that if the revenues are flat and the cost of just treatment is going up, something will have to be looked at, a rate review or a rate hike or further efficiency of the system. I think someone who has got the experience in the past is going to be very helpful. You have a superintendent, you also have the finance department in town. Ultimately, the town is responsible, so although it is run independently, it comes to the bottom line of the town. So we have resources here, should there be a need that is there. I think experience and a little bit of knowledge for this short length of time until May, when elections would be there, I think would be extremely helpful to have someone who has a little bit of hands-on experience, talent that's there. I mean, if you look at the low pressure, high pressure in a nuclear power plant, that's what you've got in a sewer. You've got a low pressure system, much like a light water reactor. So there's some overlap of mechanics as well as experience and understanding of what went on and what is likely going to go on as far as revenue and the cost.
I do
So
agree.
I, after speaking to both of them on the phone at length, I think John is a reasonable, and I would defer to you as well. You believe you can work well with one another and get it accomplished, that's fine.
Any other commentary?
I just wanna say, just so I'm on the record as saying something, because I like to talk. I think that, I think that a seasoned, veteran of the sewer commission is probably exactly what they need. They've made the case, and I intend to support John Beck on this. I will say I'm incredibly uncomfortable discussing finances on an agenda when we're not here to talk about the finances of anybody except our earlier investment. So if you see me squirming, that's why, and I really would like to put on a future agenda, having them come back in and talk about it and use words like rate hike when we have the material in front of us to have done our research and understood and been able to converse there. I came in here prepared to discuss the three candidates, so I have been a little uncomfortable. I just want to get that out.
I have one final thing to add. I think that might be absolutely worth considering in the future, and that is to have the ability to have an associate member. By having an associate member, it is extremely difficult to run with two people when someone leaves.
That's
because
very good.
we
Let's
both
bring
travel
that up
to-
later, though.
So
That's a
that-
good idea, though.
so I just
We
think
wanna
that's
keep,
a thought.
do wanna keep this
Thank you.
agenda, yeah. I am in agreement also with, the fact that we're looking at a short period of time. I almost see this as the baseball team coming into the last 2 or 3 months. They go for new players, they go for veterans to help them get through the rest of the season. I see you as sort of needing someone, and that you folks are doing the work, and if this is who you say you really need to have do it, which I'm hearing clearly from you, I would have a respect and predilection for that. I particularly would, what I want to put on in addition to what Jack and the others are saying is that this is an elected position. This is you are all elected by the public. So I have special deference to the fact that I have 2 elected officials in front of us that the public has put here, and that your saying of it, I give more weight to. I also give more weight to the fact that this is a short period of time, and that the things that, very good points that Steve and Jack have brought up here are gonna be excellent for a conversation and a debate, which will go to the public, and the public will decide next spring who it is that they wanna have in this position. And then all this can be very properly and thoroughly fleshed out. And that's really in the realm this belongs to. So I would like to be accommodative to what elected people wanna say based on the arguments you've said. And I'm also looking at an elected process for this particular, which is the natural process for this commission in the near future. Any other comments?
I'd just like to wrap up by pointing out that, as I have said clearly, I think it's very clear that fundamentally, at its very core, the functioning of the sewer department, not the commission, but the department, is built on finance, and the fact that it's not recognized by the commissioners at the moment, that there's a booked operating loss for the last 2 years, and actually, we didn't have a CAFR before 14, so it's a varied reporting structure, is disconcerting, not from.
I don't
To us
believe
as
it,
well.
so it's
No,
not
no.
disconcerting. Okay? You have to
It's-
prove it before you go ahead and say it.
Okay, we're off again.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
gonna
off
stop.
again.
I make the point, but these are issued documents by the town. And I'm simply making the point, okay, that is the core to me of what is needed in the near term for skill sets on the commission, okay? And so let me leave it at that. I also wish to point out that I consider John Beck to be a personal friend, and I recognize the years of contribution he's made to a variety of areas with respect, within the commission itself. But from my view, the core competency that's required here is financial, and I would support Mike Angemi if he's moved to that. And any vote that I might make to the negative for Mr. Beck is not about Mr. Beck or his skills, but rather I think the misalignment between the needs and the proposed.
Yeah, one thing I
Okay?
wanna say on that though is, and maybe I'm sort of repeating myself though, is that what's being brought up is a valid issue, but I see it as something much for the public to decide, and for this to be brought forward by candidates in a board that's elected by the public. I just want you to know that's in my mind here. I don't wanna overreach as selectmen too much into this. I'd rather respect elected officials and respect the fact that we will hear from the public pretty soon on this. And if it's not, for example, Mr. Genjenomy, I welcome the discussion and the debate because it's high quality. It's just exactly what a democracy should be about. And I say let the people decide in a few months. In the meantime, give them the hand that they need. That's my view. Anything else? Am I hear a motion on this relative to this?
I make a motion that you appoint.
No, we.
Oh, we make a motion. That
No,
John-
you make a motion that we. What's your motion?
I would like to see this committee appoint John Beck as the interim sewer commissioner.
And that's a motion?
May I ask that you amend the motion so that it identify that it's a joint appointment between your commission and the Board of Selectmen?
It is, we're sitting in joint, it is, because we're all gonna vote on this. So I wanna go back again,
It's
make your
minor.
motion again, please.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that the sewer commission and the board of selectmen appoint John Beck as interim sewer commissioner.
Thank you, Bill.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Okay, why don't we go do a roll call, since this has been more or less,
Aye.
Aye.
you need to say your name and
Bill McGowan, aye.
would you like meeting with us?
Wayne Sawchuk, aye.
Jack and Eiley, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Steve Gorman, nay.
Okay, Tracy, the vote is 6-1. Congratulations to Mr.
Thank you very
Beck.
much, everyone.
And gentlemen, I want to thank you, Phil, and I want to give a particular point to thank you all for your service. You're running an important function for the government, and I know some of you have been around for a long time, but you can never be thanked, and you should be enough, I'm sure, that we recognize, as all of us do, and appreciate the service that you two do and that your commission does for us, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the budget message and discussion. So I want to discuss process on that, please. I've sent out, as requested, a draft, right here, at the bottom, a draft, shot at the budget measures, okay? And, so you all got that. If you need hard copies, I have that, unless you have your copies in front of you, I presume probably you do. And I've gotten two good responses, and this is the procedure I'd like to take, is, both Steve and Diane have sent me in written responses. And what I'd like to do is, Steve sent his in first or earlier, so I'd like to go over his first. I'm just discussing, we can change the procedure, this is the procedure I suggest. We'll go over what his view is, because this really comes down to, from what both Diane and Steve are saying, they're similar things and they're around, and one of them is one significant issue, so I think we should be able to handle this tonight this way. So at any rate, what I'd like to do is pass out Steve's, you've got the one I offered as the first draft, Steve's commentary, and then we'll like to go over it and see if we come to agreement or what we don't come to agreement that's in Steve's, some of it's similar to what Diane's has. With that done, then I wanna pass out Diane's and see if we could take that, and if there's any, whatever we wanna make changes on, and based on Diane's, that would be the procedure. And then I would like in those discussions, really just to discuss the major issues, there's only one or two. So once we get those done, the rest of it, some of it is phraseology, I think we can discuss a process to maybe expedite that. That's the process I suggest to get us through this interesting process. Questions? Okay, if there's no questions, this is Steve's, why don't you just take a...
I have a copy.
Steve, you want to-
I recognize this.
Okay. And you have the one that I sent, okay? Do you wanna take a moment to look at it, if some of you haven't seen it at all? And then what I'll do is sort of, I think, while everybody's sort of looking at it, Steve, I'm thinking you really have one major thing, we can go right to that, do you want, or do you wanna go through each of your points?
Yeah, I
Either way
actually,
you-
the overview is pretty straightforward. It's really a matter of taking some of the verbiage and compressing it, so that
Yeah.
it's, the document itself is tightly focused. The specifics, with respect to a particular item, item number 4 that Kevin refers to, I'm sorry, item number 5, is a question as to whether or not it's needed as a, to be addressed in the budget message. Is there something that we have discussed as part of our objectives that would lead us to believe that item number 5, continue to develop a professional human resource function, is somehow underfunded, and within our discussions and agreement on objectives, should therefore be included in the budget message? Okay?
And I would say, and I don't have a problem with that actually, even if we end up taking it out. One thing I would say though is that first of all, my reaction is definitely, I agree with all the bullet points to go out based on the rationale that
This being
Steve
for
has
item number
provided.
5.
Yeah, under number 5, I'm sorry, the bullet points we could go out because they are more, operational. So that would then really reduce this to, all I would say we might think about is that first sentence, is the board remains committed to supporting a professional, valued, and volunteer workforce. The town has made considerable progress in creating a professional and human function that fosters and supports these values. And then the statement that we expect that the town manager to provide adequate resources to this function for its proper operation. We could maybe, I would say maybe we could keep that, if we did even keep this at all, because of, human resources and the, is really 80% of our whole budget. And, it is very significant, and I also might wanna hear, even though this is our message, if our town manager feels as though this needs a resource focus, and I guess part of what I was thinking of when I continue, this has been on past years when I continue this, is we've been doing, I think, a half-time on human resources, part-time on it, does the town manager see a need to go to 3/4 or more resources there? I mean, if he did and we agreed with that, then I think we should at least we think about keeping in the first sentence, but that's kind of where I'm at on it. Jack?
So the budget message is something that's required by the selectmen under the bylaws. You know, we're asked to do a budget message. And I think the purpose of the budget message is to give guidance to all the committees and the town manager to how they put together the budget. And if that's the purpose of this document, I have to agree that, you know, having something about human resources is probably not appropriate, because we're really talking about the financial stuff. I mean, I understand why we did it before, and I think it was good when we did it, but I'm not sure we
Yep.
need it now.
That's fine. And that's, Paul.
I guess maybe I'm contrarian on this. In a large company, you need some human resource function for, whether it be services for the individual employees, for however you run your salary, however you run your healthcare costs and healthcare available, your individual policies for that. Sometimes it's very helpful, and it will potentially prevent problems with human resource problems, which, so it may not be a true under the guise and under the purview of the budget message, but I think it's important, because you can really handle a lot of potential problems with supporting human resource.
I totally
So-
agree.
So I wouldn't remove it entirely, and I would put it under purview of the town manager, say, look, we understand there's a, you know, budget message, and one of the budget messages we need to do is to be certain that, you know, all of the whether it be healthcare or retirement, other things that are involved with all the employees is available and is one of our messages, because things go wrong in a human resource point of view, you're liable for a lot of potential lawsuits and other things that are involved with that. I would not remove it.
So could we say something like, could we
Wait a
say?
second. Steve's next, then Jack.
I had my-
Oh, sorry, well, why don't we go Diane? because we
That's right,
haven't
let's
Diane
Steve
on
take
this.
it.
Go ahead. Steve, then Diane.
Let's recognize what a budget message is to do. It is to direct the development of the budget from the board's point of view, right? We're ideally at 50,000 feet, not 20. And, you know, the town manager is at 20, directing the action based upon that message. The message, on the other hand, comes from the objectives that we set as a board more than a month ago. All right? So this message should be a direct set of marching orders based on those objectives. The question before the House is there something missing currently within our HR function that we need to direct for budgeting purposes? That's the question. If not, in other words, if there is not a need for additional resources there because there's a new charge or an additional charge put on that function, then it's really superfluous. I mean, there's nothing in here, to your point. I agree that it's very important. Likewise, our fire department is very important, but there's nowhere in here that we're in the budget message saying, and we've got to support our fire department. Well, of course, we're going to do that. That's a matter of course.
Just to clarify, if I may, so for example, if the fire department needed a new fire engine this year, we may have that in there.
It would-
I'm
it would-
having a
it could
discussion.
show- it could
Yeah,
show up
Then
as-
we might put it in.
as
But
an
you're not
example.
seeing any additional need?
No, what I'm saying is, I don't know, I did not hear this board discuss or hear a proposal for additional funding needs within HR.
To do this.
And if we're gonna keep this compressed and focused on those objectives, let's do that as opposed to wandering.
All right, I'm gonna go back to Paul because he's in the middle, and then Diane.
It doesn't specifically say to put more revenue towards that. It's to support it. Now, if you support it, you can potentially prevent lawsuits. You can deliver better services for healthcare or different plans that are available. That would make for a better town and run more efficiently and run with less tax dollars. So
It's why it was created.
So the human resource is a huge function. It doesn't just do the fire department, it does the fire, police, it does DPW, it does potentially the schools, it does the
Right.
all the town employees. So I just.
But not including
I
it doesn't diminish it.
I don't believe that taking it out, it just says in conjunction with the town manager, review organizational structures, continue to develop implementation of performance reviews. There's some minor verbiage that I would consider taking out, but you still need to support that because that, we run as it's human resource that runs the town. It's the personnel, so I think that's a very important.
Let's try to get to
But
Diane.
once again, just the opposite is true. Not having it there doesn't mean we've removed our support. You know, there's,
No, but
you don't
I-
see a mention of the police department, fire
No, but I
department,
think
DPW.
leaving it in with an understanding that we're committed to supporting it is extremely helpful. You know, this goes back to
I'm finished.
when I was in a business with same size town, same size revenue, same size number of people. It was service industry, and this is what the town is. And I really think you need to be cognizant that you shouldn't just not put it in,
Okay.
even if it's just in bullet point.
One possibility before Diane is that we may put it up front here, a sentence or two up front here, but let's go to Diane.
Yeah, Steve said a lot of what I was planning to say. When I went through this, I did take it out too, because I approached this sort of looking at what are our, this is a budget message, and I get the difference, but I look at it as what are our budget priorities. That was in there because we didn't have a human resource function. I don't think that, to Steve's point, I don't think not including it in a budget message diminishes at all. I think we all realize that it keeps us out of the court, it supports the whole town, but I think it's a functioning department. If the town manager were to say to us, we're still not there, we're 20% of the way, I need 3 more employees, or I need something, then that is a material difference to the structure of the town that's gonna require budgetary
Focus.
help, focus, and then it would be in our budget message. So I don't think we're diminishing it, just as we're, and I was gonna use the fire department as an example, but whatever, or the schools for that matter. So I took it out for that very reason.
Jack?
Can I propose a compromise? Can we have one line that says, continue to provide financial resources so that we can, keep developing the human resource function in the town? I mean, so we're saying, make financial resources available so we don't stop the development of the human resource function in the town. I don't know what the language is, but at least it indicates that we want to divert some of our financial wherewithal to keep it going.
And how about,
Do we?
excuse me, how about furthering on that compromise? Instead of making another bullet, another section, put it up front in the background, put comment like that we
Yeah.
want to emphasize it as our background, how important our employees are. And actually, I could almost see that we could do this by taking the first sentence and the last thing about the town manager. I could read it again, but I read it already, and just put that up front. That would cover, that would make the kind of statement we want to make, and yet it's not part of our formal message.
Yeah,
I
because,
could live with that.
I mean,
That's fine.
Yeah.
we've been advocating for a human resources department for 7 years. I mean, it's critically important, so I don't want to give the citizens the impression that we don't.
And I don't want to give.
We're just trying to craft a budget message that other folks can use to build a budget for town meeting, that's all.
Right.
And I understand Paul's concern, so let's carve out a sentence that says, we want to keep putting resources against human resources.
And we want to put it in the background area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it almost like a value statement up in the front, that these are things we value. I mean,
Yeah.
Chris may say, I have more money than I know what to do with respect to HR.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I'd
with you.
rather, invest it in the, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I-
so, Paul?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not looking for monetary value, just the
Statement.
thought and statement saying, whatever he needs, we need to try to do our best to support.
Because we are talking up here about reaffirming one community, or we have in the past anyways. So this is what I'd like to propose, is that we essentially take, we eliminate 5, and I buy the reasoning on that, and take the first sentence, and then the sentence of, we expect the town manager to provide adequate resources to function the town. Take those 2 sentences and put them in, underneath the one community statement.
Sure.
Something like that.
Perfect.
Okay? Does that do it?
Good,
I think
good,
that-
good.
And it's not, okay. We all right on that?
Yep.
All right,
I
now
just-
that's,
Will we have a chance to see a final draft of this before we walk
you can
away?
do whatever you want. I can redo this based on this conversation. We originally planned to review this again the next meeting, so yeah.
Yeah, and it would make some sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to delay it any further than it needs to be, but
You're still on target, you amend it
We got time.
just tonight, you get an amended version, you adopt it next meeting, and you're
Next
still on
meeting,
target.
hopefully
Okay.
we'll have one. So that's the change that we're gonna make. 5 is gone, and that's gonna go, I just wanna make a note, and I'm gonna put it in under the we reaffirm the one committee area. Put in number, I just wanna make a note, 2 sentences. All right, that I think was the major point that Steve was bringing up. He's also, I won't speak for you, but you made a number of things which I don't really have a problem with. I think they're almost high-quality edits. But I mean, I'm generally kind of okay with that.
Well, I think it's more to the point, thank you for identifying it. This is the first chance that any of you have had the opportunity to read any of those edits. If you've got comments or issues with the edits, the red lines, sing out.
Sing out now, because essentially,
I think
they
they're
look
fine.
pretty good to me.
They're fine.
And Diane had some similar ones, but I want to be done with your section on this. You said? Okay, now, if we were all done, so to speak, and then we actually, we would then have a 4-point budget message and these changes we made. But we have some very, but Diane Kennedy has come up with some very good comments, as always, and I'd like to pass those out. And what I'd like to do now is, essentially, if it's okay, I'll take the liberty of saying we're essentially now in Steve's document with that one change we just talked about. This is where we generally agreed to. Let's see what change we want to make based on Diane's. And you have it,
You wanna
Chris?
give Chris?
Yeah, I have it.
Oh, you have mine? Okay. And
Tracy needs a copy, Steve. Everybody got a copy? And we'll get them. All right, so with Steve's to my right here, Diane's over here, let's discuss this.
You want me to kind of?
Let's discuss what we may change to Steve, what's on Steve's now, to accommodate any commentary you have.
Okay, that could be difficult, but, well, the first thing I did was move the mission statement up front, which,
Are we agreed on that?
Fine.
Yeah.
the next thing I did under background was, I felt, and I think we had this same exact conversation 2 years ago, I felt like it's finally time, after 4 years of budget messages, to get rid of the sentence, "The financial strength and stability continues to show remarkable improvement over the last several years." Because I think the last several years have shown remarkable improvement. I would like to say something like, "The financial strength and stability of Cohasset is strong." Having consistently, I'd like to be more affirming, if you will, as opposed to, "We're still struggling to pick up the pieces." But that's a judgment call.
Are we okay, let's go to these one at a time. We okay with that?
Yes.
You're done. We'll do that, and I'll say okay. That's gonna go in. Next point.
The next point was, I'm trying to figure out which way I'm looking at. Next one is I got rid of that whole next sentence. Steve edited it, so I don't.
Excuse me, you have something about AA bond rating and so forth.
I'm sorry, I added to the end of that as an example of the financial strength and stability I added,
We
including
okay
the
with-
trust fund and the achievement of AAA bond.
We okay with Diane's changes there? That's gonna go in.
And is that date right? January 2016? I made it up.
I think it was a little bit later than that.
Why don't we just say 2016?
2006
We
fiscal
could say
year.
fiscal year.
2006.
I'll change it. The achievement in fiscal 2001, okay?
2016.
2016.
2001 was a
It was a
disaster.
movie.
That was a bad year.
That was a really bad year.
It's a great movie.
Yeah. All right, next
Still on
thing.
the Odyssey.
Yeah, on this, next
That-
paragraph has.
That's more
I would
editorial, I mean,
I actually would prefer Diane's edit out entirely of that paragraph.
Any problems?
Paragraph 3.
Yeah.
Paragraph 2.
our continued financial strengthening and improvement has been.
So if we say this year the Board of Selectmen reaffirms its commitment, because
Yep.
the Board of Selectmen is a body, not,
Our,
yeah,
No, excuse me, we're in the paragraph above.
sorry. I thought that was
So-
eliminated.
Yeah, we're talking about eliminating that.
I'm quite all right with the elimination.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's gone. All right, we're now on this paragraph that we affirm.
so, change R to its, reaffirms its.
I've
Why
lost
don't you
it.
just make it mine?
This year, the Board of Selectmen reaffirms its.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see, Okay, so this year, the Board of Selectmen reaffirmed
It's.
yeah.
Provide high quality valued services.
So we'll go with Diane's version of that? Is that okay?
Mhm.
All right. Diane's is in, we'll just cross out with Sunday, Steve's. All right, the next thing is we affirm our one community initiative. Okay, you gonna push this?
Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, I didn't know we were gonna go line by line, but, because I don't wanna take up too much time, but you know, the one community is kinda ephemeral, we like never, it's not on paper. What do we mean by that? What is it really? Is it an initiative? Is this just that we look to,
We look to share expenses with the school committee budget where feasible and prudent for both bodies.
That's what I said.
That's functionally what it is, but to Diane's point, I believe, this is not an adopted policy, all right? It was an initiative started some years ago, and the bodies have continued to work in that spirit, but there is no defined item. And it's, I think, you know, we're getting into an area now where year after year, we're using one initiative. I've been guilty of it as well. And there needs to come a point where we begin to identify what that is.
right, because I see it actually, you know, it's more of a terminology that we've just used as opposed to an initiative. I always look at it like we are one community and we act that way. We work together, we sit on committees together, we discuss budget issues, we discuss bus routes or whatever, you know, whatever it is in terms of just that we're one. It's
And
one
that-
tax base.
And that very difference in view could lead to an awful lot of problems. Because it's just the two of us, it's not 8 of us, and you get 10, and then you get the idea.
And we could just challenge you to
Think
Well, I'm
about it.
talking about,
summarize it.
I'm talking about, we wanna take it out then?
Well, I don't know, it's so much, at the moment, you know, it's interesting, we just had a discussion about, well, what happens if you take out HR, all of a sudden, is everybody gonna know it's missing? Diane, I don't know if this is where you wanted to head with it, but this might be an item that we would wanna think about with respect to policy development and some formalization.
Mhm.
Whether or not it comes out, or we simply rewrite it, it's worth noting, at least to ourselves, that there is no formal policy here. And the broad and general understanding might vary person to person,
Right.
okay?
Okay, I have a predilection to thinking that the message is good there, of the idea of sharing. The school is, 65% of the money's in town.
You know, it's-
I think we could have the policy discussion. I'm just trying to think,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get through this budget.
Yeah, so why don't we just leave the message
I
the
say-
way it is and
I
say
leave it
this
is,
is something
right.
we need to
So
work
discuss
on.
it, yeah.
Just
We've
right.
had this for
We'll work
several
on
years,
it.
so I'm gonna keep this in, but these points are good and we can bring
We
this
all
up.
agree, so let's figure out what we
Because
want
I
to
think what
say.
we need is, we have a good basic budget message here, we don't need to fine point this to, we'll never get it done.
No, but it's something to identify for
Oh, no, I
future
think it's-
conversation.
And you
properly
could-
identified.
Just respectfully, you could actually consider using that, making that HR value statement in the same paragraph. So we're talking about, these are the values, we value the relationship we have with the schools through when we value our employees and our
Yes.
volunteer boards and committees. So maybe
Yeah.
that's how you.
Yeah, I actually have it right below, but I may make it part of one,
Summarize
I'll
all
work
that.
out something on that,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
The next one, Steve's words, adhere to the principles, I totally agree with. I too maintain AAA bond rating, I moved that up.
But you strike the intro paragraph,
Which intro paragraph?
the objectives?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did, actually.
You say it as a surprise.
Well, do you
Yeah.
wanna strike it, folks, or not?
I mean.
Well, no, actually,
It's kind of redundant.
realistically, if you're seeking to, as you and I talked about earlier today, Kevin, if you're seeking to maintain a AAA bond rating, by definition,
It's everything.
you're adhering to all of this
Right.
stuff.
Take it.
I think it's redundant.
So we get rid of the paragraph there, one, it's gone. All right, and all bond ratings going up front, fine. Does anybody have any problems? No?
Okay, so this is where things get complicated with me. Let's jump to number 3, establish capital priorities, plan for funding.
Okay, just before you do, we're all in agreement on Steve's version to go through number 2, okay? I think, yeah.
Go, Well, my substantive change on this is to number 2.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I wanna just
Go ahead.
talk about that really quickly.
Good.
So number 2 is use the allowable tax levy on Steve's, right? And
Yeah.
number 4, because this is based on kind of the original, is budget for the delivery of townwide services equivalent to those of the preceding fiscal year within available resources, produce high-quality, technologically driven services with budget transparency and customer service orientation. I see that as 2 separate things. So I made number 2, budget for the delivery of townwide services, blah, 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 within available revenue sources, including the allowable tax levy. And then I added a number 4 is the produce high-quality, technologically driven services with budget transparency and customer service orientation. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we
You separated it into 2 objectives.
the, how we're budgeting
To,
within, you know, the same service level, if you will, as last year within available resources, within the available levy as one whole thing.
Right.
So I merged them. And then the last bullet, because we don't have HR, is the focus on the technologically driven, which I think becomes like the new HR. Like, this is the thing, this is the piece that we're woefully missing or behind the times on. This is a budget
Or
priority.
also willfully pushing. Willfully, not
Willfully.
woefully.
No,
Right.
right. So that's just something to think about.
Okay, any comments?
I actually like the way the 2 compresses.
So, let's get everybody's comment, but Steve, you're essentially in agreement with the way Diane has made 2 and then 4.
Diane's rewrite on 2
And
is
4.
is an improvement in my opinion.
Yeah,
And 4,
and
I
then-
haven't even read 4 yet.
4 is, or
I
5,
know,
actually.
yeah,
It says
Oh,
5, but
yeah,
it's
I
really
made the
4.
wrong
That's
number,
okay.
sorry, yeah.
So-
What happens when you're right in your car?
The new last one.
Was 0.
Well, then, just to be orderly here, because I do want to get through this, are we okay then on Diane's version of 2?
Yes.
I am too. So Diane's version of 2 is what we're gonna be. So now we've come to agreement on everything down to the end of 2. There doesn't seem to be any disputes on number 3. Are we okay on 3, folks?
Yep.
Both Diane's. Okay,
Yep.
so now we're on number 4, and I think the question in hand is, based on Diane's previous change, shall we go with Diane's version of 4? And that would,
Which is fine.
that would conclude our, that would put us in agreement.
I think so. I mean, this was a big focus of our conversation in a variety of different areas for objectives. Was focusing on technologically driven enhancement.
And it's new, like the human relations was when we did that. You know, that's why we put it in before, and now we take it out.
Yeah.
This is now a focus, we'll take this out hopefully in a year or 2, because we've accomplished it.
Kevin, this is gonna be 3
Amen.
years at least.
Whatever it is, but I mean, it won't be forever, it's a focus.
Well, that's right, but it is an initiative. HR started out as a vision.
Right.
It had an immediate application in the 2nd year, and the 3rd year was a build-out. I think this
That's what I'm
is
saying,
one
we're
of its
following the
signals.
same process, is what I'm saying.
So
All right.
The only other little thing is that Steve had deleted the examination of options and cost to computerized physical records, I think because it's a specific
No.
item thing.
No,
It's
because it was
repeated up
included,
above.
it was up above.
Okay,
It
so
was
if
itemized
it's
up
still up,
above.
so,
So that'll go out, okay? All right, do we agree on 4 then?
Could I just say one thing?
Yes, of
Bullet
course.
point number 1, development of a comprehensive communication strategy. I agree. I just don't, I think to make it relevant to this paragraph, you might want to say, using all potential social media, technological platforms to communicate. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, let's make it relevant to what we're talking about in this.
Well, give me the phrase then. Development of a comprehensive communication strategy
Which
to
effectively
include,
utilizes social media
to include the use of social media, okay?
and digital technologies.
To include the use of social media and technologies, you
Yeah,
say?
digital technologies.
And digital,
These.
Snapchat, Periscope.
No,
This
that's
is
good.
going on Periscope.
I agree with it.
Fine.
Okay, so that 4 we agreed on,
Yep.
and there's been no question on the below, the rest of it. Diane, you have something else?
just on number 4, because I think it's a little misplaced now, is the actively pursue RFPs for existing contracted services. Do we even need to say that? Isn't that just assumed? And/or what does it have to do with technologically?
I would concur with taking that out.
Originally, just so that we're clear on this, originally, it was never under technology in
Right.
Kevin's first draft, but it has been a continuing initiative. And I would argue that it ought to be included as part of our budget message somewhere, because frankly, we're only
So put
partially.
it back in one. I totally agree. Why don't we move it back up into one?
You think it's one or two?
And here, town's financial management reserve policies, you know, because it's part of that. It's
It's a policy.
yeah.
Okay.
So where do we put this?
Under
Take it,
one.
put it into one.
Okay, so let me just read the development, RFPs, okay, to number one, got it, all right,
It's really a financial management policy.
that's right, it'll go into number one,
Okay.
It's not technology per se.
okay. All right, now, to summarize, this is really good, so we've had a basic thing put out there, we've looked at the human relations, we've taken it out, we've essentially divided one of the functions into two, and we've agreed on those two sections, you know, to and follow. That's been the big stuff we've done. The other stuff has been some, you know, edits and stuff which I've made note of, which I think I should be able to handle okay. I believe I have enough I'll take all this and produce what I hope is pretty much a final draft for us to look at next time and approve at our next meeting. Are we on board with that?
Yeah, I mean, if you can have it out in advance, you could take it up as a first item and we could move right along.
I will do that, and put it in the package as well.
Well, yeah, I would imagine, yes.
Okay, very good, folks. I think that this is a complicated issue. The dialogue, communication on it's been very good. Chris, do you have anything on this?
I think it was a really good conversation.
I think it has been too. Very meaty, very good, very good. Thank you, everybody. We now have a discussion of, next thing on the agenda, the policy of public and private ways. As I want to just give a little background on this. This came to us, a number of citizens have raised this issue recently with us at a meeting. We've also considered this seriously in our major goals and objectives, which we've promulgated, and I hope you all gotten a copy of it. But this, addressing this issue is in it for our goals for this year, and we're sort of trying to get right on top of it by covering it this meeting here. And with that, that's the background. Chris, and if you'll introduce yourself, this is Brian Joyce. If you won't, we'll go ahead and lead the discussion on how we're proceeding here.
Good evening. So I just did a few slides to kind of frame the discussion with the Cohasset picture of public-private ways and quantities of that. You know, many people are here from Cedar Acres Lane and Cedar Acres Drive with a petition to pave that street. So I'm gonna get the slides up.
Just the pictures.
Oh, sorry,
Oh,
it's,
never
I
mind, I got it.
think it says road discussion.
Road talk to yours.
Road talk. Road talk.
Sorry.
I think we kept technology in that budget message.
Yes, one of these days we'll actually be able to Bluetooth or just fling it up and down, right? Well, in the preface, so Brian and I have been talking about this for some time, but most intensively over the last couple weeks. He put his intern on the task, looked at a number of communities that have adopted policies, and at the same time continued to move on the data analysis, how many roads are here, what kind of, so made a lot of good progress on pulling that together, which I think will help set some of this conversation. I can't tell you that I have a fully drafted policy to look at and adopt tonight. I think we're on a path, and I think tonight with some direction from all of you, we will be able to go to that next step and recommend some things, so.
Right, so with that, again, this is kind of framing the discussion on the picture of where Cohasset is relative to, I guess, other towns. It's a little hard to read, but Cohasset, so you can leave it on the map one, the chart's a little hard to read there. Sorry, go
Hold on.
next slide.
It says.
Sorry.
Next slide.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is our GIS later for public, for roads in Cohasset that we've been building. The blue designates Mass DOT, the red would designate accepted public ways, green is private ways, and the yellow is other, which is a pretty decent quantity in town. It's common driveways, and there are some other ones in there for multi state park that aren't included in the percentages I'm about to show you. So if you go to the next slide, Trace. So here's the percentages of our properties serviced by the street types. So those three street types, I'm leaving Mass DOT roads out of it. This is just public ways, private ways, and common driveways. Total number of properties in town is 3,103. The properties that are serviced by accepted roads equates to about 67%. Properties serviced by private ways equate to about 20%. And those served by common driveways equate to about 12% of the, and that's properties, not population, it's just residences. And the definition, so public way is a street, road, drive, lane that's laid out and dedicated for public use, accepted formally by the town through town meeting vote, and town accepts responsibility and liability for maintenance in perpetuity. Private way is a street, road, drive, lane that's laid out, it has a road layout, and it serves several homes, but not formally accepted by town through town meeting. The difference between the private way and the private drive, or common drive, is the private drive, common drive is a street, road, drive, lane that serves several homes, but it has no road layout, and it's not formally accepted by the town. It would be, there are rights of way generally to serve those homes.
Brian,
Yes.
Are these definitions generally accepted at the DOT? Where do they come from?
So this isn't from DOT, this is, I guess, generally accepted definitions from our language of public and private ways in other towns with public and private ways. DOT, I can't say it's not DOT language, but it's pretty consistent across the board with what I've read in different.
Okay, no,
cities and towns.
I'll come back to it, but there's a reason I'm asking the question. I mean, is
Sure.
it, other than the fact that it's laid out by and dedicated for public use, are there other things that we should be considering, width,
Well,
sidewalks,
there is.
curbing?
But there's that, in this conversation, I haven't distributed, I have this like 80-page surveyor's guide to roads in Massachusetts,
Mhm.
which I learned a lot as I read. There's something that they call statutory private ways, which is effectively what we're calling a private way here, which is laid out pursuant to the subdivision law or something else by the planning board. So it's laid out as a road for access, but it's never been accepted by the town. They were approved pursuant to a legal mechanism, usually for land development.
So I have a slide a little later on about subdivision, it's the Cohasset subdivision standards, and it kind of quantifies what our subdivision standards and road layout requirements are.
Okay.
Because you have, there's a number of properties that have, these, flagpole lots, pork chop lots, that have frontage on a public way, but don't have access on a public way. In fact, I think Brian's house is one of them. They're connected, their actual literal access is a common driveway, which is just it's on private property and it's a shared driveway. But the homes have frontage on a public way, so they're legal lots. The literal access though is down a common driveway, it's not on the road.
Well, I was simply asking the question because in looking at the spreadsheet that you compiled for us, there are several accepted public ways that you would look at and say, are you kidding me?
Right.
And so from that perspective, I'm just wondering, do we have such a thing as a common definition? I understand town meeting can do what town meeting does.
Right.
But if there is a standard, I'm wondering if we should start to define it.
So the standard now, today, would be the subdivision standard through the planning board, and that's,
But that standard would affect both public and private ways,
correct.
as defined here.
Correct. In that spreadsheet that I sent before, I'm only bringing up the common drive because it's a pretty decent percentage of
Right.
properties, but that was not included. That's really not included in the maintenance. We wouldn't go in and pave any of these streets. I'm just
Right.
opening it up that it's a third type of street that serves a large, well, not a large, but a decent size.
Thanks for answering the questions, I appreciate it. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Please.
Next slide, please. So the road maintenance policy, the town's developing a road paving plan with a 20-year life cycle for roadways. That was, the draft is what you saw a couple of weeks ago. The estimated cost of our annual maintenance to keep these roads on a 20-year paving cycle for public ways at an estimate of about $60 a linear foot is approximately $600,000 per year. So from the state, state aid chapter 90 money this year, or FY16, we received $213,000. Previous year, we got $314,000.
That was an additional amendment that the governor put in for ice and snow removal.
Yeah, wasn't that snow
As
again?
a single.
There's also money that was left over by the prior administration that haven't released.
Right.
So they have not, no administration's fully funded Chapter 90 for a very long time. Should, but they don't.
No, that's the reason why that price is different.
It was a one-time bump.
Two one-time bumps.
There were two bumps. Well, one of them could be a permanent bump if they chose to make it so.
Right, okay.
So generally, we need to be paving about $600,000 a year, and we're getting half or less than half from the state. So we should, I'll get into it in the vote below, but a recommendation for a road stabilization fund. Private ways. So the estimate costs of private ways for annual maintenance for a 20-year paving cycle, and this is at $75 per linear foot. Thinking that private ways would be in worse shape, and again, we haven't gone through a comprehensive analysis of private way road condition, but just to give you a perspective, the Cedar Acres, which is going to be a full rebuild, it doesn't have many castings, but it's a full rebuild. That's about $83 per linear foot. So again, that's a pulverize and reclaim and rebuild the road out. And we can't use state aid on private ways.
But that number, by the way, just to be clear, doesn't reflect every single road that could be considered. We used a threshold width of 18 feet. Was that?
Right. So on the private ways, there are many private ways going from 8 feet wide up to, Fair Oaks Lane, which is a pretty decent layout. So that number is everything 18 feet and above, thinking that we're not going to entertain roads under 18 feet, which is, in my opinion, a minimum width to get two vehicles passing.
Is 18 feet sufficient for emergency access?
So 18 feet doesn't, it's not our subdivision standard, which you'll see in a minute, but it's 18 feet will pass not two emergency vehicles. It won't have two fire engines passing each other. 10.5 feet is what we needed for emergency access on Beechwood Street at the dam. So it's basically 10.5 feet is the biggest truck they have.
Okay.
So you wouldn't pass two of them, but I don't think you'd have two of them going down the street at the same time. So the recommendation, this is something, we've been funding through special articles, roadway monies over the past 3 years, but I think it would probably be a good idea to create a road stabilization fund with an annual contribution around $300,000 a year to keep us on that 20-year paving cycle.
But you're talking about public ways in this case?
Yes.
Correct.
And Chris, we've made a regular allocation for the last two budget cycles of what, 150,000?
We've gone up as high as 250, depending on between fall and spring as money was available.
But that was an additional fund above and beyond the Chapter 90
Yes.
funds, right?
Yeah, Chapter 90 is never going to be enough to maintain us.
No, I understand, but can Chapter 90 funds be deposited into a stabilization fund.
Well, we don't even have to do that. If they just hold until we spend them, they go to a grant fund and they sit there, so.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know if they go into a stabilization fund, I have to check, but effectively,
They do, they can.
but they
Yeah, I wouldn't
effectively
think
sit in a
so.
grant
They can.
fund anyway, and we don't spend them until,
That's right.
Right,
We-
they're reimbursable.
You cannot
Grant.
do it.
You can't do it.
You gotta
It takes
keep it in-
state money.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So with the chapter 90 and just the formulas on the side, the formula is, the road miles is 58, a little over 58% of the formula, and population is 20.8, and the employment factor is a 20.8. So those are the things that go into our chapter 90 calculation.
What is employment, what does that really mean? I don't understand that.
Employment factor represents employment within the town's
Means Bronson
borders.
gets
I
more
don't
money.
know that.
Just means a person who's employed, not necessarily in the town, but physically has a job.
So it's a proxy for how much use the roads
That's right.
get,
So-
independent of the
Yes,
citizens.
the thought process is if you're working, you have to get in a car and go to your place of work. So
Does it
regardless of
account
whether.
for people that come into town?
Yeah, so
No.
think about
It
Natick,
does-
okay?
it does-
Natick's gonna have 10,000 people that don't live in Natick but work in Natick.
Got
So
it.
that 20% number's gonna be very, very large.
I understand.
No,
Ours is
but
gonna
it's-
be very,
but it's
very
for
small.
individual town, so.
Right, but Natick itself is, let's say Natick has a number that says employment. So somehow you gotta calculate the usage from
But the person has to
employees.
be physically a citizen of the town and has a job, is how they calculate.
I don't know if that's
Two
how it's
different things.
calculated.
I don't think it
but
is.
I don't know.
That's my understanding when I spoke
Fair
to the
enough,
DOT
we'll
last
figure it
year.
out.
Okay, all
Sorry.
right.
But the fact of the matter is the formula behind it, and we don't get much, okay?
No, we don't have that much here. Well, I mean, the town actually has a pretty high employment rate. It's actually very high.
No, no,
There's
no,
not
no.
that many people here.
And strangely enough, we don't have that many road miles,
Right.
so,
It's true.
okay.
And so our plowing policy, which I think we'll talk about more in a subsequent meeting, is per MGL Section 6C, which is adopted in the next slide. I think it defines it. Town accepted in 1957, Section 6C and 6F, Chapter 40, which allows for plowing on private ways ultimately. It doesn't constitute a repair of a way. We're refining the policy because of recent winters, especially the brutal one we've had a couple of years ago, where we'd like to send out release forms to private way owners to have us continue plowing on those private ways. And again, the plowing discussion will continue. It's separate from kind of the maintenance and paving discussion.
And that would
Release
be
form
sent
is- I'm
to-
sorry, go ahead.
That would be sent to those 20% that live on private ways.
Well,
Well, it's actually the
20 it's actually
33%.
33, yeah. so-
33, so it'd be the common driveways too?
Because some of.
Correct.
Some of those get plowed.
Some of them get plowed because there's multiple people on it.
Okay.
And we have to get ambulances and things to people's houses.
Well, what's
and
this?
so is it a liability waiver, essentially?
Yes.
Yes.
And then beyond that, since we have them in the audience here, imagine that our neighbors return only a third of the waivers, and half of them say yes and half of them say no. What's our action point?
So that's, I like Hingham's model on this, and they require 100%. And I think
Okay.
this year, it's a little bit late to get everyone going 100%, but I think if we really put the policy out that we need 100%, and, you know, one person is the collector of signatures, they can,
One,
I think until the first storm, when it doesn't get plowed, then you get the signatures pretty quick.
yeah. You know, just one, in constructing that letter, I mean, there's probably a lot of people that have, once again, no idea that they live on a private way. So
Yeah.
at some point, we would probably need our policy in place just to let them know why we're reaching out to them and asking them for this permission.
The basis of this
It's
entire
complicated.
conversation is not just about paving a road.
Right.
It's all of these services. What is our policy with respect to that, to
Right.
33% of the doorknobs that
Right.
are accessed through
30% of whom are gonna
non-public
be
streets?
very surprised to read the information that we're gonna be relating to them.
Yeah, I think it is important to underscore that there are really two distinct issues here. Paving and repair, which we've been talking about, but plowing as well, because we do it. We just done it as a matter of course for a very long time. 2 winters ago, it became a real big problem. And part of the problem is that we can't get snow out of some of these private
Yeah.
areas. So people complain that we pile snow in their bushes, and, well,
Yeah.
there wasn't really anything we could do. And the town ended up having lots and lots of claims. Now, it's nobody wants to damage anything. Obviously, if the town recklessly, went through somebody's front window, then we'd obviously pay for that. But damage to lawns, damage to some mailboxes, it's just kind of what I had. Private contractors do the same thing. The problem is we don't have separate insurance. Our deductible is pretty high, we look around and we discovered that a lot of people have these policies already in place. They've been doing it for years and years. I think there is as Diane pointed out, the big public education campaign here, and that's why. So this has actually been good to open up this conversation.
Yeah, this is part of educating the public,
yeah.
this discussion tonight, yeah.
So this is one whole aspect. Now, no one's recommending that we shrink down what we clear. I think there's just the nature of the way the town's developed. We need to be able to get ambulances out of the public safety vehicles. And imagine the fire today on West Way. Imagine if we didn't have that cleared in a winter situation, that would be really bad. I mean, so regardless if it's a private way or not, we have to be able to get an ambulance into some very back corner areas, or a fire engine, no matter what the season. In terms of repaving, though, that's a whole other topic. That becomes a whole other subject, which is what we're talking about now.
Exactly, and we'll get to that, but it's rapidly formulating that there's going to be an essential classification of the roadways such that the policy can begin to address them in descending order.
Yes.
Okay.
And just one other point on that, so there's a zoning and planning aspect of this too, that, we've been able to develop these lots in such a way where it looks like a long dog leg left and serviced by,
Gotta give it a hook to get it there.
driveway. Where other towns don't have their rules to prevent those type of shaped lots. Anyway, next slide, please. Here's the Cohasset subdivision standards. So just generally working from the way up, from the subgrade up. The utilities buried at proper depth for frost protection, particularly water and sewer. Drainage at a decent required pitch, 1/4 inch per foot. 12 inches of gravel subgrade. The inch and a half base course, I think is written as 2.5, and I think that's probably what I want to do, 2.5 inch base course and an inch and a half top course. The road layout on the subdivision, total road layout's 40 feet with 26-foot curb to curb travel. The actual travel lane inside the curb is 12 feet. So as you can see, even just driving around town, a lot of the roads don't meet these subdivision standards, a lot of the older roads. And I don't think there's any way we could get a 40-foot layout without tearing out or moving those out of the way. So this is really where we start with the discussion on what we want for minimum standards, and I think we take we'd look at road to road, a case-by-case basis on if we decide to go forward with acceptance. Cedar Acres Lane does meet the drainage requirements and the road layout, just for tonight's discussion. Next. So our ratio, us relative to other towns, our ratio to public and private ways, we have a pretty big ratio, as we've kind of talked about. We have about a 3-to-1, 3-to-1 to 4-to-1 ratio. Situate public and private ratio is about 7-to-1. They do have a private way acceptance policy with a petition by 75% of the owners along the alignment of the way. The cost of the upgrades for acceptance is borne initially by the homeowners through betterment, and then thereafter, after it's accepted by a street acceptance committee and the selectmen and town meeting, it's maintained by the town. Dedham, and we have them in here because they have a lot of information on their public-private ways. Their private way acceptance policy is with the petition of 100% of the owners along the way. And the cost for the street upgrades are borne by the town. And the Board of Selectmen are kind of the jurisdiction and the power of that.
So that would be the town bears the cost of an upgrade before the acceptance?
Yes.
So the town bears the cost of the street upgrades.
Quite generous.
Yes.
And
I
it's
mean,
all
those are
on the selectmen?
No, well, I mean, eventually town meeting has to.
Well,
approve
I'm
it.
sorry, all these,
Right,
yeah,
but-
town meeting go through.
They have a fairly
I wouldn't
elaborate
get a
policy for who goes
policy.
first, and they also say clearly, don't hold your breath, it could take 10 or 12 years before you get your road paved.
Yep.
By the same token, they also require 100% of the owners, because they don't want to end up in litigation. They said, if we're gonna do this, if we're gonna pay for this, we're not paying legal fees, so stop fighting, if you need land, you gotta give us the land. And so their policy is generous, but also very hard. It's, you either follow the rules or you lay them out, or you don't get any money.
Right.
100% of the owners and the liability.
Is Dedham a public town meeting form of government?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they're bigger than we are.
But it's still a town meeting form of
They
government?
also have a lot more commercial space than we do too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
county
the
seat.
county seat, so.
Yes, it's a lot of things. But those give you two examples of I think Chichester and Dedham were actually kind of interesting as examples. I'm not saying that we follow any one of these, I'm just saying there was some actually good ideas that came out of all of them. Dedham actually had an interesting way of ranking streets too, in terms of their viability for becoming.
And these towns with these policies, which you're not showing here, but they have procedures underneath the
Yes.
policies
They
that
have
we can learn
pages
from
of-
and get some best
Mhm.
practices and
Yeah.
developing ours.
Right. Dedham has criteria on basically how many they rate the road on how many homes are on it, and does it connect to how many public ways
There's
it
a link to
connects
a public
to.
facility,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense.
Point-to-point
Yeah.
access, right.
So too many criteria to quantify in a quick slideshow. Norwell, public to private ratio is 5-to-1. They do have a private way acceptance policy with petition to the Board of Selectmen. They don't have quantify.
I'm wondering if they don't have so much better ratios than we do in part or significant part because they have a policy that structures this.
It could be that, Kevin. I mean, ultimately, the layout and the approval for home sites and the like lies with the planning board. It's not within our purview. And if there was, development over the years, down through generations and the like, and it was not restricted by our planning or zoning, well,
You got
we got, we got.
what we have.
So cost of upgrades by town meeting vote. And there's a larger group of people to do the vetting. They have selectmen with input from water, board of health, planning, drainage, a drainage committee, highway surveyor, tree ward. Marshfield, there wasn't a lot of information, but the public-private's about 5-to-1 ratio, and they allow private way repairs with a town meeting vote. Next slide. And I think this is the last slide. Again, this is what our bylaw states right now for repairs on private ways, which I think you've all seen in the last meeting with. Is there another slide?
Nope, that's
I think
it.
that's it. So that,
Could you go back to the prior one for a second?
Sure.
So, now, I wouldn't sit in front of you and recommend 100% payment, and I wouldn't sit and recommend that we do nothing. So, if we're gonna craft something, I'm not asking one thing to vote necessarily, but, we can hammer out the finesse. I think that both Situate and Dedham have interesting aspects to them, and I mean that not just from their funding at all. It's just they have a path for pretty much anyone who wants to come forward can get their road moving, but with different parameters. It's how much people want to, there's different amounts that people have to contribute, but there's some standards too. In Situate, what they've done is they've created a whole street acceptance committee, so they've kind of farmed out the responsibility for kicking it around to residents who come around and sit. And it's staffed, I assume, and supported by their public works, but I haven't actually talked to the town administrator. I mean, I don't know if that's something that's necessary or not. I know the town has had public way or private way committees here before.
How does it work, Brian, in Situate?
so it's 75% of the people petition.
No, but in terms of, is it effective?
Oh,
The committee.
Depends on who you ask.
yeah, I don't know the information.
And
I-
it says,
I don't
it says
think it's a big
the
deal.
cost is borne initially by
The
a
homeowners.
betterment.
Right.
It implies that there's something that goes on later? I mean, is it?
No, basically, the town does the work in both circumstances. But in the case of Situate, the residents pay it back through betterment.
Oh, because it implies that borne initially by the homeowner.
Yes,
It
correct.
implies that somehow maybe the town takes them off the hook after
no,
a certain
no,
amount
So,
of
so
time.
after the street is
This is
upgraded
long.
to the subdivision
Then the town
standards,
takes
then
over.
the town takes over in perpetuity.
Gotcha, so it's a one-time cost to do the
Yes.
initial betterment?
Correct.
Okay.
That's right.
Steve and Diane?
There's two things afoot. One of them is urgent, and the other one is really important. Okay, the homeowners, they have an urgency, right? The really important is the policy. And I only say this to clarify, Brian's brought forward a number of really important items. I just asked the board, from the outset, are you prepared to fund? Because really, what Brian pointed out at first is we are underfunded even for our own public ways. Okay, and there's an additional annualized event of about $150,000 based upon what is considered broadly a private way as opposed to a private drive, right? So there's a funding issue. Number two, and probably more important than that, is there's a loss of definition that we have as a town. What would we look at as something to potentially be accepted as a public way? What would be that definition? Is it road width? Would it pass construction? Would we be willing to accept a 26-foot wide road as opposed to a 40-foot wide if in fact it were constructed properly, right? And the reason for asking that is, ultimately, I would think that folks that live along private ways would aspirationally want to have it accepted as a public way if it didn't cost them too much, right? Because in the long run, it's a pretty good trade-off. So where are we going to go with this? And then the final piece of that is, at what point do you say, no, we're not taking that anymore? As an example, we're familiar with a public way off of North Main, and you look at it and go, really? Really? How did that get there? There was no standard. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that you go back and you automatically retract that, but it should serve as a reminder that we have a duty to act with some thought and focus on the larger questions. And ultimately, we come back to the same urgent item, which is that we have at least one group of homeowners who are looking at a crumbling structure. So what we actually craft as a policy
Yeah.
probably has its built-in experiment in front of us.
So why don't we
I'm
ask?
not gonna take the audience right now, citizens right now.
Could we
Wait,
ask?
Diane's next.
Could we ask Chris to
Diane.
draft a policy?
You did, Diane, did you want, Diane had her
That'll,
hand
he
up.
can finish up that.
She had her hand up, but it's all
Yeah,
right.
no problem. Why don't we have Chris draft a policy, we'll look at it, and we'll go from there. And there's one other thing I want to point out. I don't know if the town has a policy for opening up the streets once they're paved. We've
Yes,
had a
we do.
lot of work going on lately, and
We do, it's a 5 year?
So that's the third portion of the discussion. We're updating the street regulations. We have instituted 5-year moratorium. It doesn't mean we're gonna let everyone dig up. We try to discourage any digging for 10 years, but obviously there's emergencies, there are, service connections that need to be made, but right now it's 5 years.
What's the warranty? Does an intrusion have to be repaired or patched?
Yes.
Yes, what?
You mean, if somebody digs up the street, what do they need to do for a repair?
I'll give you an example. There was a tremendous amount of construction that took place along Pond Street about 8 years ago. Okay, water and sewer. Opened up the entire street, and they repaved it, and it was like a highway. And then along came the gas company about 2 years later, and now you've got a rut that you can run your wheel in, you know, as long as you're going, as long as you're in that lane for the entire length of Pond Street. Because we didn't have an instituted policy that required them to repave in equanimity, we've got to run. And,
So
you
this
know,
is, yeah, I mean, currently, what we're doing, this is what we need to formally adopt in the street regulations. Gas company goes up the street, they do a repair. After one season, if there's any settlement, we try to tell them, you know, good compaction, but sometimes you don't know until after a year whether it settles or not. After a year, then they come in and do a grind and inlay, which is wider than the trench. It's a good repair. It's not just at the joints where they did the excavation. So that's a typical trench excavation.
So Hingham and Hull asked for a complete repave, just so you know.
So, you know, we got complete repave in the center of town. I don't know that other towns are getting a complete repave.
Okay, it's kind of,
Right.
I want to,
But it's
Can I-
important, let me tell you why it's important, because it's gonna be an ongoing cost. I mean, I can tell you right now, my street was repaved and reopened 4 times in the last 2 or 3 years.
which is why we want to have a policy.
So we'll end up spending $300,000 or $400,000 a year and potentially have, 25% of it compromised every year, which is gonna, on an ongoing basis, really cost us a lot more money than we initially thought. We're doing much better now with an opening policy than we were 10 years ago, but as part of all this, I think the reopening policy has to be a big part of this too.
As part
And I
of the
think we have to
policy,
be
we
pretty
do.
strict about how we do
Yeah.
it. And if we're not gonna be, if we're not gonna be complete repave, we have to put that into our calculations, and it means that repave number's gonna be much higher than we've got projected here.
I think one of the most important things too is coordination, if
Yeah,
I
I
may,
don't
I'm
think you're
sorry.
gonna get-
Don't worry about it.
We need to coordinate the utility work. I mean, one of the problems was that one utility did the work, oh, we have to fix this, we have to fix this. Now, if this is an emergency, literally, I think a month after we repaved Ripley 2 years ago, there was a sinkhole.
Yes.
Well, that happens, and you have to fix it and get it done. But we're doing, I think, Public Works, water, sewer, and all underneath one umbrella now, with Brian kind of overseeing all this, is helping drive communications better. It's like, oh yeah, we really do want to do that road. Well, we're going to repave it in 2 years. Let's get your water line in, or your sewer line. That happened downtown. There was a lot of conversation with water and sewer. In fact, I even think they changed
Yeah,
the
so our
pipes.
20-year cycle has before it utilities, including National Grid now.
Okay, Diane?
One distinction that I don't quite understand is there's this idea of private ways that need to get work done or need to be rebuilt, need to be paved or whatever. Does that necessarily lead to acceptance? Or is
No.
accepting a road, right, is a whole nother topic.
Yes.
So right now, I mean, I think we're jumbling a whole bunch of things. I mean, I think we need to address each policy-wise, but right now, the question is, if there are private ways that need to have road work, how are we gonna address them? Forget about whether they're
Here's,
at acceptable standards for later, and if I could just because God knows when I'll get the floor again, I do like the idea of the rating system, having something go through it, because, for example, I live on a private way, and I too have had my road dug up a few times because of the utilities. There are people that live on private ways that don't have water and sewer. So, in my opinion, that might rate a little higher than my street if you're looking at all the private ways that need to get paving, because they may be in worse condition, they may have a school bus go down it, and they may never have a prayer of having a utility come in and dig up and repave their roads. So just in terms of talking about future policies, I do think we should consider a rating system of some kind.
Steve?
to your point, okay, the reason for talking about the concept of going from a private way to a public way is essentially the embodiment of that idea of a rating system. If we've got limited resources, I would argue that the place to deploy those resources are those private ways that could legitimately be accepted first.
Sure.
Okay? And then down through a, if you will, a rating system to find out where you can allocate that money and under what circumstances and how. And as we talked about last time, and we could go so far with any given petitioner to say, yep, we'll do the road, we'll pave it through 100% betterment, right?
Right.
So there can be ways of allocating scarce resources that include full cost underwriting to to no cost, but at the same time, essentially extension of terms. The concept behind it, the concept that I was promoting is very simply exactly what you're talking about. If you will, a valuation of the particular roadways we're looking at, okay?
Yep, I just have one follow-up question for Brian, which is, do these paving private ways, do they require land taking? Do they require any kind of?
No.
But I think what you were talking about.
Steve, Paul.
I'm just looking at these different town policies. So we have a town that's got a lot of private ways. Situate has a means to do it by saying homeowners take the full price of it through a betterment. It's paid, it's accepted, and then it becomes part of town public road. It's still got to go through town meeting either way, it's accepted. So whether or not the town's going to vote for it, it goes down to town meeting, who shows up. Dedham, very little private ways, and the town will pick it up. They've got a little bit better tax base. They're also a representative town meeting. Norwell is probably similar to us, and there's a lot of review before it even becomes, it still has to go to town meeting. Marshfield, private ways with a town meeting vote, that's the cost structure there. So they don't become a road, but the town is willing to pay for it if you get it through town meeting. So all the ones, it looks like the idea of Situate's, you can get the betterment, the town will basically front the bill. You'll get the betterment, and then you go to town meeting and say, will you accept it? Seems to be the cleanest way, which could potentially settle right here, the people going down in, Cedar Acre Lane, and look at that as one means to go forward. And that's how I would look at it.
And, if you do it that way.
Is your hand up, Jack?
His hands up.
Jack?
Could I, thank you.
Yeah, I know.
You're a star.
If you do it that way, Paul, to some extent, you lessen the need for a ranking system, because if the citizens on the street choose to have the repair and they're willing to accept the betterment, we'll do the work, subject to the availability of the paving trucks.
Right.
It eliminates us from having to go out there and decide
That's
and
right.
rank order who's gonna get
Yeah,
what.
and the
And,
decision
that's
is town
clean,
meeting.
that's a nice way to
And
do it.
that's just for the paving, isn't
Yeah,
it?
just for the paving.
Right.
And then if you want it,
Acceptance.
you go to town meeting and you get the vote, and you do. Dedham, you have to find out all of the members who are the elected members of town meeting and do it that way, but there's not that many.
Yeah.
Okay.
Marshfield, same thing goes to town meeting. And that, you don't necessarily have to take it over as a road. Now, the plus would be if you get an acceptance, you do get the, $20 a mile for the road for chapter 90.
Mr. Chairman, we've, in the body of time that we've taken this on, with the help of Brian Joyce and Chris, we've identified a number of things to consider. But at some point, we've got to drive toward an action step for tonight, even if it's putting together a draft policy.
Yeah,
Hang on just a
this is
second.
what I was about to get to.
Why is that? Fall asleep.
No, it just
Woke me up.
Okay, if I could,
He's got Tourette's.
This is kind of what I'm hearing here, is one of the things that we want to do is have a policy, we've made a commitment to do that. I'm hearing that, and we want to have a policy, our first policy that we want to have is to handle the private way issue, which this presentation shows that there's a large number of and so forth. So, and I'm hearing that Situate looks like a pretty good model, not definite, but that looks like one that the board you want some direction that seems to like. So I'm just gonna suggest that we ask Chris, as our next step here, is to develop a policy that would be for private ways, converting to public ways for our review. Now, that's just put out there, so who wants to make a comment on that, Diane?
Yeah, I just want to
In a
clarify.
way that we can move forward,
The
yeah.
private way policy,
I think you were suggesting the cart before the horse. The first private way policy I would wanna know is, under what circumstances would we pave a private way and
Expend any town money.
expend any money on it? Like, how would that, so the acceptance thing to me is a secondary thing.
Okay,
But,
let me just, would that not be, that would be part of the policy he would give us with that first part you're pointing out as to what the criteria for
Sure.
exams would be, so that we can move on forward on in the meeting, and then have how that process would work forward, so that's fine with me. Does that make sense? And that would be a good, we've discussed this for a long time, for a couple of years here, that would be a step forward for us. Is that a policy that, and then we could ask them to get that to us in a month, 2 months, what do you want?
Can I,
Go a month.
A month?
Can I ask one other thing? Because this comes under capital maintenance. Would it not make sense to engage or ask Chris to engage the capital budget committee as an additional resource?
When he does it, I think that's fine, and he can, and we would suggest it, was fine if we suggest it, and that he can do any one in addition he wants to, so that's fine. If we're making that suggestion, are you gonna
Yeah, I have a question. Does any street paving go through capital?
Not individual roads.
Okay.
No, this is, I'm just talking about policy and considerations, or if it's, even if it's not capital, might it be the planning board, right? What I'm trying to do is make sure that we're not making policy in a vacuum as it affects the rest of the town. That's all.
I'd suggest this, is that we get a policy out of this. And the policy be the two-step thing, definition of, the initial definitions and so forth, the criteria, and then the steps to do it. Okay, so this policy looks pretty good to us, and then we can then ask Chris to run it by whoever we wanna run it by in a reasonable period of time, and then we can take it back and finalize it if we want it. If we choose to get further input, we may look at the policy. So that would be a way to do that. I don't wanna, but I won't.
Let me get a pass on it, so we'll go back and
I'm gonna
talk
get
to
to you.
Mark. We'll draft something. We will circulate it to planning and maybe some other folks to get some input. I'll bounce it off council, make sure I'm not doing anything crazy. And then we'll circulate it to the board for you to pick it up on October 11th for potential
Beautiful.
adoption.
And it
Is
would
that
be,
fair?
so the idea would be you could get the comment from all of these groups, committees, and an attorney, and then you'll produce a document for us, so that'll be a first draft
Right.
for us to look on October 11th. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Would you want-
Like, in the same vein as we talked about with respect to the budget document, if you can have that to us well in advance of the meeting, so each
Yes.
of us can come in prepared.
Yes.
Good.
The goal would be to have it out at least a week ahead.
All right. Then a final question for you, because we do have the audience here. If we start to tick down on the clock and we still don't have a policy adopted, that doesn't change the circumstances for this neighborhood, right? So the question I have for the board, and it's just an open question, would we be willing to propose a 100% betterment over a 10-year period, and based upon the adoption of the policy, go back and and if there is a financial consideration in that policy, enact it retroactively? For instance,
And the
should we
purpose is get them squared away.
get them squared away on a 10-year basis, so that we're not in November saying, okay, we're ready to work now, and we can't because it's too cold, right? If we then adopt a policy that calls for a road at their classification at a 50% cost share, could we go back, would
Make it
we be
retroactive.
willing to go back and retroactively fund it? You understand what
I
I'm
do.
driving at?
I'm all for it.
It's
Okay.
a bit like saying, I really don't care about your health insurance right now, let's
Yeah,
get the
that's
bleeding
fine.
stopped.
Yeah.
Diane?
yeah, the only, I have no problem with that. The only issue I have is, the percentage of people on the street, right? Would we need to,
Oh, I think Chris's point is right on the money. You've got to, I mean, from the town standpoint, I think you've gotta have 100% buy-in.
Right.
And a sign off on the plowing and the liability.
See, I mean, now we're starting to get these policy pieces that,
Right,
We're
but we're not
implementing
there
before
yet.
the policy.
We're not
So
there.
I would suggest that, I would be favorable to what Steve is saying, but it adds impetus to the fact that let's get moving on this, because
Yeah.
the sooner we can get the policy that would cover all of this, the better. And I think the essence of what Steve is saying is that we would, anything that we make in the policy will make retroactive. But is that essentially what you're
Yeah,
saying? But I'm nervous about, we can't commit to that tonight, and I think we need to look at the policy
No,
first.
it was really more a sense of the board, it's commitment
We're
to
up
action.
against the deadline on paving schedule.
Can we go as late as early October and still schedule something?
I'd have to check.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Can't they, under the existing bylaws, can't you proceed with that and get,
I'm looking at it right now, trying to find it.
the existing bylaws, doesn't that allow them to get going on this?
Last slide.
Just, I think it's actually the next.
I thought that under the existing bylaws, they could come, like they did last time, they make an application,
Article V, Article 5.
accept it, and take care of them under the existing bylaw.
Yeah, I
In the
mean-
meantime, fairly quickly, let's get an overarching policy.
Well,
It says you can make repairs from anywhere with betterments from 0 to 100%.
So let's let them do this under the existing bylaws if we want the action, and I'm favorable to that, and then be doing the policy.
But you
And
have-
when we do the policy, we'll decide whether,
but if that's the case, this board would have to adopt a betterment. as
Percentage.
opposed- a betterment against every single property on that road.
right.
Which
You'd
would
have to do
potentially be challenged, but at least it would be so, yes.
And Steve's saying, do 100% betterment over 10 years, and then if we agree to a 50-50 sometime in the future, go back and
Wait,
re-jigger the betterments.
Well, I'm sorry, if you brought this road down to the bed and essentially built it from the ground up, all right, what's the expected life on it, given that it's not a throughway?
I think we'll get 15 to 20 years. I mean,
Okay, so you match the betterment to the life, right? So, at least at the very least, if you went 1 year out of pocket, you've got on a 20-year basis, you've got 5% of the cost.
okay, I'm gonna let Diane get in here.
Yeah, I
Please.
mean, I'm all in favor of expediting this. However, I would like legal counsel to give us some advice on A, the betterment, and also B, this bylaw allows us to allow for repairs, and this
Point.
road doesn't need repairing.
It needs
It
rebuilding,
needs
right.
complete rebuilding. So assuming that, I need clarification on that, I'm happy to have
This is
another
what I'm gonna
meeting.
suggest.
Okay.
This is what I'm gonna suggest, is that we direct the development of a policy, which I'll repeat again, we need to be moving on with the, at the same time, we give direction to Chris to move forward, expeditiously to take care of this particular situation that was brought forward to us, which we can, so that we can make decisions to approve it or not approve it. No guarantees can be made, but we would direct our town manager to move forward on a short-term basis to take care of this, in light of the fact that we're trying to get it done in the next few months. Is that the direction, is that okay?
Well, I think you gotta define what move forward means.
We'll let Chris do it and see
all
what
right.
That means we wanna get,
All right.
let him define that,
We gotta
and he'll
let
work with
Chris
the
take some
citizens
initiative.
and come back, because we do wanna try to address this. And so Chris is directed to do, without a vote, but we're more or less given the direction to take the short-term action of addressing the particular situation that was petitioned to us to the limits and reasonableness we can, bring it back to us as soon as you can, okay? Wait. And then secondly, develop this policy for delivery on October 11th. Now, I can take audience if you,
Well, I was gonna say,
wait, the board's not done yet.
Just a final item for this. If you have a drop-dead date for paving, and we would need to take some sort of action to allow the town to engage, if it were allowable to engage, in repairing the streets, the street, subject to a retroactive application of any policy that's adopted. I am willing to meet, I'm not all that available over the next 2 weeks, but I will certainly dial into a special meeting for that purpose. Okay, and I want to make that point, because what I'm hearing come out of Brian is that it's not just the weather, it's aligning the resources to get this done.
Right.
Okay?
That's fine, we'll all make ourselves as available as we can on this, that's a good point.
All right.
All right, Paul,
Yes, so two other options here. One would be a bylaw, which would allow not just repairs, but replacement of roads. That's one easy way to do it. Now we give the authority for betterment, or however we want to do it, but it would replace repairs with repairs and/or replacement or repavement in the bylaws. And the other one would be a special town meeting for the cost structure for that. And that, timing-wise, you don't want to build it in November, but that's the other
Yeah,
potential, is
it's too late.
to potentially put an article for repaving
Yeah.
or replacement of bylaws, or, that may be one thing on the special town meeting, is to put in the bylaws that you may want to add 2 words, repair and/or replacement, 3 words. 4.
okay? Chris, I didn't.
I was just gonna say that you reach out to my office and we'll set something up in the next, but before the end of the week, if anyone, so we can facilitate the conversation.
I'm gonna, wait a second, and now, are we all down on the board here, because I'm gonna go to the audience next. We all in for the deliberations? Now, anybody in the audience,
Great.
please stand up and identify yourself.
Frustrated. Chris Murphy, 38 Cedar Acres Lane. And, I really thank you, because I think this is a really, really good, constructive meeting tonight, and I appreciate the attention you've given to us and the sense of urgency you've displayed. One of the things that I just want to make quick, 5 points, very quick. Because I want to show you how, and Steve, you were talking about Rosano Lane. Dolan Lane.
I didn't name it.
I know,
No.
I know what you
We
were
don't wanna
talking.
get into individual.
Okay. Well, I have a picture here of Dolan Lane, which is a road that is right off King Street. And it goes through the Mathnasium building. It goes right through the right-hand side of the Mathnasium building. It is not paved, it is the side yard of the Mathnasium building. It is a publicly recognized road in the state. It's an O2 road in the state, and it's called Rosano Lane. And it has 2 sawhorses. There are chairs on the road, quote-unquote road, which is grass, side yard of a road. So it just goes to show you how goofed up this whole thing is.
That's actually kind of a unique situation, because Rosanna Lane, as it is not in this location, went across the T-tracks.
That's right.
And they moved the sign.
They moved the
So
sign.
that's not the original Rosano Lane
It's a
as it's
different road.
defined. So Rosano is off of, Cohasset.
Okay, I need to move this along, because
Okay.
the comments, we've pretty well got some good action going here. What do you wanna contribute to what we
Okay.
act?
I just want to let you know that we also have another sense of urgency. We have a young gentleman on our street, a young boy on our street. His mother's in the audience, and he's a special needs child. And he's challenged with coordination and things. Trish, I don't know if you want to say quick 2 seconds
Yeah,
on it?
just real quick, I think it was just something that we talked about.
You would come
last
forward and
week.
and give your name.
Tricia Dandro, I live at 11 Cedar Acres Drive, so I'm at the top of the hill. So I think we talked last time, and again, we're repeating ourselves, but we talked about the fact that we have some elderly people that have been hurt and the kids can't play. I have a special needs son. So, can't ride his bike on the street, can't, things that took him a long time to learn, now he can't really do, because we just have, so many problems with the street. So it's just sort of another, thing that Chris asked me to just kind of bring up.
Yeah.
Not to belabor the point, but just to kind of keep in mind that there are lots of challenges to us as, people living on the street.
We appreciate you do so, and as you could hear from the conversation tonight, we're trying to move forward
Yeah,
both
thank you.
on this
Appreciate
particular, even before, and get our overarching policy done quickly too, so that other streets in this town and roads can benefit from the policy as well, so, and we appreciate what you're saying, and thank you for coming forward.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the audience? Yes. So, identify yourself, please.
John
Yeah.
Burke, 36 Cedar Acres Lane. So just in terms of the percentage, I just want to clarify, I think when we've talked, you said we needed 50% of the linear
That's the current bylaws.
area, right, so to present to the selectmen, and then you can decide, so are you allowed, I guess I don't know the rules, but can you change the bylaws to get 100%?
We
So
can't change it.
You
Town
can change
meeting.
it at town meeting.
The town
So
meeting.
That's what I
it's
mentioned earlier.
50%,
You
so
go
we
to town meeting and
present, we
change the
ask you,
bylaw.
and then you can't, don't you decide?
No,
Or-
so what we can do, and what we're trying to do is anything that's under the law now, we're willing to expedite and try to get done for this community, the street here. But we can't do anything, we can't change the bylaws. We have to follow those.
Town meeting acts as legislature, okay, and only town meeting can enact the bylaws. We could recommend changes to it, absolutely, but only town meeting's vote can change it.
And I would say we probably wouldn't be inclined to wanna do that till we do this with the overarching policy, cause then we're getting, in my view, we're getting a little out of control to do otherwise, so. We're gonna do everything under the law now, and we'll look at bylaw changes as part of the policy, I would think.
So
That's
is
the
it not
proper way to do
50%
that.
then,
I-
that we need, I guess, I don't.
I think there's a confusion if I am understanding things. So
The
there's
petition is the
50%
for
of
petition.
the residents need to bring the petition forward to us.
Okay.
So,
been done.
and we
Which has been
could go ahead and do whatever we decided to do. What we're talking about is in a policy, which would be forthcoming, would we require 75% or 100% of the residents to sign off on a plan? So it's 50% for the petition, and then there's nothing after that that's been codified in by bylaw. Is that
Yes,
right?
it does make sense.
So then I guess I'm just missing the one connection. If we were, so I can't speak for everybody on the street, but if we were to go with whoever brought up 100% betterment now, and then you guys can go back and decide if there's a 50-50 split or something else.
So
So
that's the
haven't we
money
already-
portion, right? So the 50% of the neighbors can bring a petition, and that's what happened at one of our previous meetings. Now we're talking about, and part of the current bylaw is if we could ask you to pay 100% of the road, we could make that determination tonight. We're not going to,
Well,
but I
actually,
don't wanna
Well,
give
so
you
isn't
false
that
hope.
But no, we
100% though?
Actually,
We couldn't, because in the bylaws it says only repair, it wouldn't be replacement.
Well, that's right,
Wow.
right. But let's presume this was a repair. We could say, the work can get done with 100% if you're paying for it,
Right.
right?
Okay, I think the point here is we're gonna do that which we
So
can under the law.
I'm just saying, sorry, go ahead.
But I do wanna caution you to remember, as far as retroactive payments or insurance, we're not giving you those insurance, we can't do that. We have to look at that when we do the policy, and that may take town meeting approval, so I don't want that to be out there and give false hope either.
So-
What we're gonna do, you've heard what I say, we're gonna do everything we can under the law to expedite this for this community.
Kevin, may I address Mr. Berg?
Yes.
Mr. Berg, I don't know if, I can't remember if you attended the original meeting when you brought the petition forward.
He was.
I was.
And you may recall that the reluctance of the board at that point was to take action without a policy in place, because by doing so, we set a precedent, right? And that's, I think, where the stumbling point might be for you, is that you're wondering, well, what are you guys gonna do tonight? And the answer to your question is, we're not going to take action tonight. We're trying to divine a policy, but make certain that we understand what the trigger points are for taking action, and at the very least, know that we've got the capability of doing so. So we've got serious questions about that capability. Is this something that would be acceptable under our current bylaws as an activity? Is it because our bylaws say repair, not replace, right? So we're trying to get an opinion on that. And as Kevin has pointed out on several occasions now, I think it should be clear to you and your neighbors that the board is willing to step forward and take action which, at the very least on a cash flow basis, this is the money part, is beneficial to the homeowners by spreading out payments over a long period of time, so long as we can do so. And the question, the contingent question there is one of timing and language in our existing bylaw. Does that help?
Yes.
But nothing more, sorry.
You need
Really
to
quick, 'cause we-
come up and address us, and give your name, please, and address.
Liz Blue, I'm at 20 Cedar Acres. I think the question is more about, okay, we've had the 50%, more than 50% come forward. Are we gonna go back and have to have 100% of people agree to the betterment to get this thing moving forward? Because I think that's a major concern.
No.
Yeah. What, no?
And that's-
Well, we
that's-
haven't,
I don't know.
There is no policy for it.
Right.
I understand there's no policy, but I think,
that would be part of the policy.
Yeah.
I think that's gonna be part of the policy. I think that's gonna be a problem.
And
So-
then
More
also
accurately.
But we're gonna discuss all that and develop that as part of, and decide what to put in that policy.
So isn't the policy, I guess you were proposing that we could potentially get the road paved through a betterment and then you'll take a month, 2 months for the policy. But that timing doesn't seem to work if we're getting this done prior to, what do we have?
If we need to
2
move
weeks,
quickly, okay,
4
let me say
weeks.
this, let me say, if we need to move quickly now, we're willing to. We wanna do what we can to help you, because we could get this done now. So, in doing so, though, I'm saying to you, you're gonna work with Chris, or Chris is gonna come to us to the maximum amount, or to whatever we can do, under the law. Okay, and we're showing you, and we showed you this at the last meeting, a willingness to do that. So this is really a question of Chris coming back to us in conjunction with you, and he needs to talk to our legal counsel, but give us the proposal to do what needs to be done now. At the same time, he's working on, we're gonna have an overarching policy. That's the best I think I can say for you.
Let me just also,
Yeah.
let me be sure that I'm understanding this, okay? So, if I understand it, the board's position at this point is, the residents are willing to pay 100%, and if we can have a legal pathway, then we have a green light to go forward to try to figure something out. If, right, am I hearing that right?
I'd say at a minimum, you have a green light to bring that forward
Yes.
to us, and you're hearing that
Right,
we're
because you'd have
favorable to
to
us.
approve.
So gin it all up and bring it to us if that's what it looks like.
If it
I
can be
think
done.
you're hearing an agreeable board. I can't give guarantees until we see it, though.
No, I
Yeah.
completely understand that.
Okay?
And we're okay, we're comfortable with a 15-year life or whatever the life of the road is, because they're gonna need that number to figure out what.
Generally, that's what the board is kind of saying, yeah. Again, we want to see the final thing, but yeah, that's what,
So,
But,
go ahead.
go ahead.
really quickly, what, Selectman, Paul, Dr. Paul,
Paul Schubert.
recommended as far as the bylaw adjustment, I think it might be worthwhile to talk about that very quickly, because that could help our particular issue. If the repairs versus a full repave is what stops the Cedar Acres one from happening prior to the policy going into effect, I think that could help it push the Cedar Acres one through.
Right, and that was my point, I mean.
That's a good
So I would
But you-
request that maybe that's something that's
Right,
discussed.
but that would have to
The only
be-
problem though is that, from a
That's
time
special,
perspective,
that'd be special
It's not
town meeting.
actionable.
yeah,
You'd
town
have to have an
meeting,
article
it's not
special
gonna be
town
till
meeting.
That can't be done till November
But I
28th
think
if it
we do a
was.
bylaw, no?
No.
It would have to go to
Gotta
special
be
town meeting,
approved.
it needs to be
Oh,
approved by the town
okay,
meeting,
okay.
by town meeting vote.
so,
Okay.
let me see if we can, if I can resolve the interpretation question. I'll meet with the
Okay,
residents.
excuse me, because unless we're gonna go on forever, we need to get it, let's see if we can
That shouldn't be authorized.
bring this.
I'm good, I'm good,
It should be there, Alderman should have a-
Check.
Yeah,
I'm good, I think I got it.
well, reiterate so that, because it's
So,
only
I'm
fair to
gonna-
you.
all right. I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna get a clarification from council, meet with the residents, see if we can put together a path that will confirm with Brian, the paving.
Yeah, I have that top of the
Right.
list.
And then I will get back to all of you as, on an expedited basis, if not before the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks, if you meet between now and then, which is something we're gonna discuss in a couple of.
If you have something that's actionable,
Yes.
that we can provide assistance on by meeting, come to us and say, I have a policy that'll work to resolve this, then I'll poll the board to see if we can have a special meeting.
Okay.
And I think you're hearing that we're willing to be cooperative in that too, okay? And at the same time, we'll have a policy for October 11th.
Right, that would-
And at some point, somewhere in the agenda, we should be thinking about a warrant article then that'll reflect this language, okay? So that's really the third thing. Think about the warrant article that will reflect some, I mean, I'm not saying for sure, but think about whether we should be doing that or not, and, because we're gonna be discussing that. I think that should settle this for this evening. Let's give some action. We okay? That said, I wanna thank you all for coming out. As you can see, we promised to work on it. We're really trying to work on this.
Thank you.
Okay, so, thank you very much. Thank you folks for the discussion. All right,
Don't go anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere.
I'm gonna accelerate, can I jump into 10-minute goals for a quick second? All right.
you want?
Can I jump into 10-minute goals really quick? So I'm going to buy everybody 30 minutes.
Okay, well, yes, you can. We got like side
I'm
discussions
sorry,
already?
I need to talk to her about this, and I don't
We're done.
appreciate it.
Well, we're in the middle of a selectment meeting.
Are you Are you skipping an agenda
Yes,
item?
so what I'm asking,
So could I just say something? So there's residents at home who wanted to come in, and I said, come in when the town manager goals came in, so come in.
okay,
All right,
residents,
now, we're
come
taking
in,
10
come in.
minutes.
You're
We'll
10 minutes,
keep the
we're waving the
discussion going
flag,
until
come in
you
and
get
have the
in.
conversation if you're watching home and on TV. So, I've been working with the HR director on formulating a packet of goals to give to you based on your goals, which become my goals.
Right.
Cross communication, all on me. Don't have them in front of you. So I'm going to get them done, and Lisa will happen to be sitting in this very seat in 2 weeks. We'll have something that I'm comfortable with, so she'll be available to talk to you and present them in 2 weeks. So you can adopt them in 2 weeks with a clean version. I'll get them to you in advance, but we don't have to go through a whole conversation at this point, other than unless you. I'm expecting that your goals are my goals. I need to turn those into something that's more direct.
Okay,
Is that fair?
so let me summarize so we understand then. Is it for the next meeting and in time for us to review, you'll produce your town goals. We put in an example in the package similar to last year. They should conform largely to what our goals are. Generally, I like to have a statement saying one of your goals is to help us with all our goals, so it's a catch-all anyways, but that'll be done in sort of really a kind of draft form, almost like we did with the budget measures tonight, and we'll look at that and see what changes we wanna make next time. Is that all understood and okay?
Yep.
All right,
Sounds
thank
good.
you, and this will be on the agenda then for our next meeting.
Yep. If you're ready, we can go on to the Cunningham Bridge easements, and if anybody does come in, we'll obviously do the.
Well, that was scheduled for 9:15, so we're
Right.
definitely within the
Way ahead-
timeframe, right?
way ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
Except
Yeah,
Ryan
I
has,
just talked to a resident earlier, and I said, watch TV, there's gonna be some long discussions, so come in when we get to the town manager's goals. So, I think,
I assume you'll be ready to
Right down the
entertain if he
street.
walks in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So. But we have to go through an update as to where this project is anyway. So, do you wanna do that, or do you wanna do that?
you can take the lead. Have at it.
So all of you have in front of you this nice color sheet. So the state has done a number of things. And we actually had a meeting on site about 2 weeks ago. We had Brian Compton by phone, and this is the timeframe they're working with. The goal is to get in and out in as short a time period as possible. So the green, by the way, on this little chart means that the bridge is fully open. Yellow means there's some limited restrictions. Red means the bridge is out. And yellow, by the way, doesn't mean it's down to one lane for weeks and weeks at a time. It could mean that they're doing some work for a few hours, or and the goal is to have that period between September and June of 2017-18 fit. Now, they've done two things to incentivize it. They've put a $200,000 amount,
About a $250,000.
about a $250,000 incentive clause in the contract. Get done on time, get paid.
You can get ambulance.
The question was asked, is that really worth it? The answer from the engineer was, on all of my projects, it has. So they've had a pretty good track record. There's also a stick. If you don't finish in a certain amount of time, you get penalized. If you don't finish on time, you get penalized. The schedule also builds in February as a no-work month just for weather. So they built in 4 weeks of cushion. I guess you're watching TV.
Yeah, I know. You skipped, so I had to hustle.
So in other words, this timetable could roll back a month into May if they're
It
able
could.
to work through that
It's possible,
February
yes.
that they're
And they're building in
carving out
incentives to
4
maybe
months.
make it occur.
The goal is to make it, you have a question.
This is an incentive for the general contractor, right? The general contractors, I'm assuming his start date is August 2017, and I'm assuming based on this calendar that his end date is mid-December 2018. So that's really a 15-month schedule.
No, the incentive clause is based on actually finishing the superstructure.
Reopening the bridge.
Yeah, reopening the bridge. I mean, that's where the
Reopening
big
it
bonus
To
is.
travel.
Yeah.
Reopening the bridge, and then after that, there is another 5.5 months of lane restriction.
That's not on a daily basis. It's repair of the,
My point is, the way this has been presented to us consistently is that it's a 10-month event. And
It's
it's
10
not,
months all down.
it's not a 10-month event, is
No,
my
no, no.
point.
No, it's longer.
Yeah. It's the DOT.
10-month impasse, and then lanes open after 10 months.
At least one.
The project's also structured so that there's a fail, if after the substructure is complete, they're running behind, they can make accommodations so that they can go to a one-lane bridge for the summer and not impact the summer. So the goal is not to have the bridge out entirely during the summer months, if things go south.
I got an
Or south.
incentive. Let's get the project manager a house just on the other side of the bridge, okay?
We'll put him get him a little trailer. He can live right there at the trailer. We looked at it. We talked about a variety of contingencies. They've taken it very seriously. I think they've been very engaged. I think they're prepared to work with us very closely. In fact, they just dropped off some materials here yesterday for the easement
The
piece.
Mylar.
Yeah, the Mylar for the easements and stuff has to be filed with the registrar. So I think they've been more. We've had our state senator at the table. I really want to thank Senator O'Connor for all his work to this point on that. He's been there, and I think the DOT has been paying attention and engaging.
Okay.
So and again, the other pieces that were discussed have been built into the plan. The Texas Rail look, the shorter, they've shrunken
The road width.
the road width, and they've eased the
Reduce the
impacts.
sidewalk length on the other side.
So there's less impact, less trees being taken down. Now, so where we are tonight is in order to maintain the schedule of the project, because this is used there. Federal money is effectively being used for this project, funneled to the state, which requires a lot of pieces to be in place in the next 48 hours. And then they have to go through a whole lot of permitting as well, paperwork and permitting with the feds. So we've been working with all 4 residents, one of whom is sitting here tonight, and to try to work out the details of the easement piece. And while at this point, and we've had some good conversations, and I do appreciate all the conversations, and we're going to continue to have them. And we are at a point where the board needs to formally acquire these easements with the proviso that we can continue conversations even after this on issues of funding or other aspects of the easement. In fact, no matter what, the dollar amount is always challengeable. It's just the law. So even if we can't work out other aspects of the easement, the money is always something that's open for challenge.
Let's finish this presentation and Diane.
So that's unless you have anything.
You have anything else?
No, just the fact that we're up against the end of the federal fiscal year and the funding to be in place, in order to keep the funding in place for the end of the federal fiscal year, which is September 30th.
We need to take the action tonight.
We need to take the action tonight.
Yeah. Okay, Diane?
My only question is if you could just quickly review the 4 easements that we're talking about and let me know whether it's, there's a pipe that needs to go across it, or they're gonna be dumping cement on the corner, or the bridge is gonna, or the sidewalk's gonna take over 3 inches of space.
There's 3 temporary easements and 1 permanent easement. The permanent easement effectively reflects, for the most part, where the road already is. When the road was built, it actually ended up on someone's property to begin
Okay.
with. And it's been sitting like that for 50 years. It's gonna extend a little bit further, not much, but a little bit further, so it's time to clarify that. So this road has been on someone's property, a little sliver of their property for 50 years.
Without the proper easement in place.
Without the
Or
proper,
whatever.
arguably without the proper easement in place.
Okay.
So this would clarify that and get that all straightened out, so the homeowner will have no liability on the road or any of that. The other ones are all just for construction purposes. It's not to put, permanent fixtures on anybody's property. It's mostly just for access. And actually, a fair amount of it is actually in the water, where they need to get out to put coffer, they have to put coffer dams in to seal the abutments so they can pump the water out and do work dry on dry land. And they're gonna need to have access to replace the facings and all, and they're gonna need to they're gonna replace wetlands, so they're gonna have to get in there and do some wetland replacement. So most of the easements are really for that, am I right?
Yes, so did you wanna go property by property, or do you, was that a general?
If you can do it quickly, yeah.
So on this side of the bridge, 184 and 181, 184 is Mr. Ripto, who's here in attendance tonight. That's for, it's a construction easement on the, as you're approaching Sandy Beach, left-hand side, about 1,500 and change square feet, so that they can work on the abutment on that side.
Now, that's that easement, is it taking or not a taking? Is that an access easement?
It's an access easement, 3-year.
For a year, and then it goes
Yeah.
back to the owner, and so this isn't,
Correct.
that's not a taking one at all?
Right.
It's not,
It's just-
it's not permanent. but
Permanent,
it's-
what I mean, yeah.
And
Okay.
it's, obviously, it's from
3-year
the date of
reverse.
execution, which would
It's a
be
river- it's 3 years.
3 years, which would be executed tomorrow, in 3 years. So it's obviously not all construction time, it's just,
Three,
it's
yeah,
a- it's
okay.
a conservative.
So it reverts in bridge completion.
All right,
I have to think the
One-
punch list.
Yeah, I heard
181
that.
Atlantic Avenue, which is across the street from Mr. Ripto, is the King residence. There are 2 easements on that, one of them for access similar to on 184, and the other one is for wetlands replication.
That one's permanent?
So no, there are no permanents, sorry. The wetlands replication is a 5-year because of the monitoring requirements for wetlands. You need to go down and access and make sure that it's taken.
When he means taken, he means taken hold. Taken.
Yeah, it's growing properly.
Growing properly, correct. As you cross the bridge, 214 on the left-hand side, it'd be the Little Harbor side. That has 3 different easements, one of them for the construction access, one of them for wetlands replication, which is 5 years, and the other one is the permanent easement. As Chris mentioned, they own a piece of the retaining wall and the roadway as it is today, and we're gonna take that, off of them. The onus for maintenance. And the 4th one is on the right-hand side as you're approaching Sandy Beach, 215 Atlantic Avenue, and that's a singular 3-year easement for, again, construction access.
Okay, Diane?
Thank
You
you.
satisfied?
Yep.
Good. All right, any other questions? Steve?
Total estimated cost is what?
the project or of the
Of the
easements?
easements based upon the
The appraisals.
the appraisals we have.
The total is 1.
176, is that right?
Sorry, I had it totalized on a different sheet.
Steve can do this in his head, you know. You can give him the figures.
No, by this time I've fallen asleep. No, I'm not talking about your speed. I'm talking
187,
about our speed.
375.
I'm sorry, 187?
187, 375.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
And just clarification, these are our appraisals
Yes.
and challengeable at any point by any owner.
Well, I think it's a 3-year window, I guess.
So the process, and this is pretty stringent through the federal guidelines, is we had to get an appraisal, and then we had to get a review appraisal for the initial appraisal. And that's what we came up with.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, this is a pretty tight legal issue, so the attorney has written out a proposed motion for this. Why don't I read it, since I have it? I'll make the motion. If there's a second, we'll move forward.
Can I just say-
Okay,
Okay.
we're not gonna, no comment from the public tonight, yeah, thank you. Okay, folks? I move that the board adopt the order of taking and resolution of damage award for the town to acquire the easements necessary for the Cunningham Bridge project and reserve the right to amend the easements acquired by the town with the affected property owners.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion, there's been a second. Any further discussion?
I
I would like to ask the board if we could just hear from the homeowner. I think he came here. I don't think we publicized it as not having a comment. I would just feel more comfortable letting him say what he needs to say.
Well, the last meeting, we didn't take comment.
Last meeting, we were taking somebody's land.
Well, if the board feels like we wanna take comment, we can.
In this case, I believe, I believe in it. As
No,
you
that's
know,
fine.
As you know,
Do I hear you?
I've been ill at ease with the nature of the presentation and the approach with this project from the beginning, and the fact that we are to take someone's land, I think at least merits hearing from them.
We're asking, we're not taking the land, we're asking for an easement for 3 years.
What we're voting on tonight is taking land if we can't get it. Okay,
Well-
let's be
well,
clear about that.
Okay, what it says, there is an easement that is permanent, there are easements that are temporary.
We're-
So this is not,
Tonight, we're not
We're not
asking for the
taking
homeowner's
land,
agreement. We're
I'm just
approaching
going
a
with the
contingency.
legal point of view, this is asking for an easement which is temporary. It will be reverted back to the homeowner once the
More than
easement's
that.
done.
No, it is more than that. Tonight, you're voting on a motion that says whether or not you agree, we're going to take it, and we're gonna take it for this price. Fight us. And we need to do that in order to let the project continue on this time frame. Okay? I just wanna make sure that part's clear to the board. So from that perspective, I believe it's absolutely within our boundaries, and it should be something very important to us, hear from a property owner.
No, that's fine, but
But this does go back,
it's clearly, this is not.
at some point in the future, this goes back
That's
to
right.
where they are
Reverts back to
now.
the home.
So
This isn't a permanent take. Jack?
there are two ways to do this. One way is to negotiate a contract between the town and the person who owns the property. That's a contract. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We can't get that done in time for us to do the funding of the bridge. So what we have to do is we're legally taking the land. It is, by law, the transaction is now a taking, which is different from a contractual easement. That's the point Steve was making. I know in the end, it's going to end up, we're acting in good faith. We're not trying to take the land. We know we're gonna work out the details, and it's all gonna revert back the way we promised in the past. But in essence, we are doing a taking, and that's why I think it's important that we hear from them.
I've heard enough on the board for that. I think it's, the board does want to hear from the citizens. So, if you come forward and give your
I
name.
appreciate you making those.
Excuse me, come forward and give your name and address.
Is it there?
Yeah, come on up.
Sure. My name is Grant Ripto, reside at 184 Atlantic Avenue. Lived there for 3 years now. I appreciate you making that specific point in terms of the legality of it, and the need to move this along at an accelerated pace, for a variety of reasons, for federal funding, for state funding, which I completely appreciate. I understand the total value is quite significant for the town at $5 million approximate dollars, and I'm not a type of person that would want to hold that up for the town whatsoever. That being said, as a homeowner, with 3 young kids and who cares about, his surrounding and his environment that his home is in, there are a number of issues. It's been a short time period. These 2 gentlemen have been very constructive in the discussions that we've had, but because it has been an accelerated time period, it's not given me a lot of time to work through those matters. So the main item that, and I know it's been mentioned a couple of times already, but is that it is still, I still want to continue those constructive engagement if down the line, we work through and we figure out something doesn't make sense type of thing. So that's, and it seems that everybody at the table here is in agreement to that, or, at least recognizes it. So that's the main item that I wanted to, focus on. And then beyond that is just that in terms of for all the issues as it goes along, I would hope that the Board of Selectmen will engage when there are, issues that would require their attention beyond what the town manager or the town engineer, or the residents around there. Honestly, myself, I'm the only resident that lives there, right? The 4 easements, right, on the 2 beach, side, right, on the, closer to Sandy Beach as opposed to closer to Beach Street and to the village, it's empty, nobody's ever there. On the opposite side of me, the King residents, right, they're only there a couple months a year. I'm the only full-time resident. So from a stakeholder standpoint, and I recognize the fact that everybody's a stakeholder in this, but I tend to think that I'm a very significant stakeholder because, for me, there's gonna be pile drivers,
There's impact.
excavators, whatever else there
Yes, yeah.
So there's quality of life issues.
Yes.
That I wanna make sure are addressed.
I
totally
do want to appreciate
understand.
Mr. Richard for giving the time that he has. Brian and I spent a lot of time last week, and when we've stressed that we are continuing, this is Mr. Ripto is a resident, not just a project cog. So, the ongoing relationship is really important, and we want to make sure that we're there, and we've also committed to continuing the conversations after tonight to address whatever issues we're able to. With the understanding that, if we reach a point on money where he wants something more, that can always be a challenge if we have to. I don't have a limitless checkbook to be able to write a check, but we've had some really productive conversations, and I think that, and the state also recognizes how important it is that there's a good contact with, particularly with Mr. Ripto, who will be living there year-round, and we've got to continue to make that case continuously through the project to make sure that everyone stays plugged in and there's good communication with the project team on the site and all of that. So,
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Attention, so-
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we've had a
Thanks,
motion,
Greg. Thanks, Greg.
we've had a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote on this. We'll start with Jack.
Jack and Eiley, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye.
Paul Schubert, aye.
Steve Gomer, reluctantly, aye.
Okay, Tracy, that's 5-0
I didn't
unanimous.
get the second though. I know you read the
I
motion.
seconded.
You didn't, thank you.
And that's a unanimous vote, 5-0.
do
Okay.
you have the document in front of you too, or is Tracy still on it?
I still have them right here.
We're
There's
ready
two
to
of
bring
them.
it around, we'll sign it. We opened the warrant.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for coming by. We opened the warrant properly, didn't we, for that? I had
You
that-
did.
Yeah,
You
that
did.
motion I had.
Yes.
All right, weedy little agenda tonight.
Thank you, Brian.
Because we all look at the clock.
Okay, we're at selectmen updates.
I haven't even had dinner.
What I'd like to do is start with Jack on the selectmen updates.
Oh, Selectmen updates? Am I?
You're on.
I'm on, okay. All right. So, next Tuesday,
Thanks, Brian.
we're doing a field trip to Harwich. Everybody's invited. We're leaving at, we're gonna leave here about 8:30. We'll meet at Town Hall. Purpose of the trip is to go to Harwich and talk to the Harwich Selectmen and the Harbor Master about their use of grant funds from the Seaport Economic Council to do a harbor plan and economic improvements to the harbor. So we're gonna get to talk to the folks who actually put the harbor plan together. We're gonna get a tour of the betterments and improvements, and we're gonna discuss, how they've used the funds over the last 3 years to actually do it. So it's kind of a show and tell and,
Fact finding.
yeah, fact finding.
Oh, go ahead.
Just to give you a little bit of background, Seaport Economic Council is a program underneath the Department of, I think it's Transportation, I'm not sure. It's either Transportation.
DCR?
No, it's Department of Transportation. And the purpose of this Seaport Economic Council is to provide grant funding for towns that have harbors or commercial, properties that are on the waterfront. They've gone through 2 rounds of funding already. Their 3rd round is getting close. We have to have an application in by November 1. I'm proposing to the selectmen that we just go ahead and get an application in for a harbor plan. We'll get more details after next week, and we'll figure out what it is we have to do. I've seen an application that's been filled out. I saw the one for Swampscott and Chelsea. It's not hard to do. It absolutely can be done by November 1st. But potentially, we could submit this application, get enough funds to at least get started on a harbor plan. I've talked to the council, I've talked to a lot of people that are involved in this, and other people that have done the project already. They all start with a harbor plan. They get it funded from the Seaport Council, they do the big macro picture for the town, work through all the big issues that you have potentially with developing a harbor. Most folks put a citizen committee together to get this kind of a project done and move on from there. We're looking at a 3 to 5 year life cycle on this thing to get it done. It's not something that's gonna happen in 6 months. But we can get funding very, very quickly to get the harbor plan funded and then started. And my guess is we're looking at 12 to 14 months to actually have a harbor plan.
So this is a fact-finding trip that produces an agenda focus at some point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I passed out was the Economic Council, the Seaport Economic Council. I mean, it's 3 or 4 pages, you ought to take a read through it, it'll give you a sense of what the scope is. You know, I've been encouraged by the governor's office and by Patrick O'Connor and everybody else that we should really be in on this.
If we wanna do this, you'll do this fact finding, and then at an upcoming agenda item, we'll put on for you to report back to the committee the results of the fact finding. and
Yes.
Discuss, is that
What the next steps
generally
would be.
agreeable to everybody to?
Yeah.
Who would, Chris, would you write this, or who would write this grant? Do we know, I mean, that might be
It's
premature.
not a grant, it's not a grant, it's an application.
Okay.
Well, it is.
Somebody will do it.
I mean, it's an application, this is all, it's a very robust grant program, which once upon a time was locked up by, Fall River and Bedford, but there's been a shift in its direction to support smaller local harbors as well. As Jack pointed out, Harwich is the whole Cape is bigger than we already get out from a harbor point of view. However, Marshfield has gotten this and some others as well.
Marshfield, Hingham, Swampscott, Plymouth, everybody.
So, no, well, we haven't asked. So, there was consideration of something, I think, 5 or 6 years ago, when this first got started, but, now, it's really, there's no time like the present, right?
Right.
And I think it's well worth the trip, and I think we'll come back and,
Have some
I'll explore more about this. I don't, if I take Jack at his word, this is gonna be we'll have to have a real plan, and it looks like there's a potential 20% match, so we'll have to find some kind of local money for this, but we're coming into town meeting, so,
Yeah.
and this might fit really well into a whole master plan concept anyway. This could be
Yes.
A separately funded arm of the process.
Great.
Yeah, and it's gonna take, again, we're doing a master plan. I think focusing on the harbor is very, very important. We need a master plan for the harbor, and we need all the stakeholders that are involved in the harbor to be part of this master plan. So it could be a subgroup of the master plan with funding from the state,
And all
with
the-
potential funding after we get the plan to actually do things. Like, there's money available for us to acquire property. Potentially, there's money there for us to, fix the pier.
Yeah.
We've discussed a lot of other transactions that could potentially happen, and there may be money for that.
And it seems all the study information and knowledge that we get from this has gotta be a positive, I mean, it can't,
Yeah.
it's gotta be all, the act in itself is a good
Okay.
tool
Just
for them.
One-
Paul?
Yeah, one quick thing, Harwich has those 2 harbors, those are dug basically out of marsh years ago. One was, I think, Richmond Harbor, which was hand dug, and the other one was Army Corps of Engineer in '68 when I was a kid. They just came in and dug it out in the days when they could dig out marshland and put it in.
That would work out well today, huh?
And it's remarkable that they continue to dredge Saquatucket Harbor, which is one of the lowest parts in the whole Cape. We've got a harbor that has been working for 400, 500 years. I mean, it's been open forever, and this is a natural harbor, so I think that's one thing where it's a natural harbor, it's a working harbor, it's a pleasure harbor, it's something that I think needs to be, protected and developed as best we can safely, so this sort of project is a great way to do it.
There's actually an interesting point too that we often forget, is that we technically share some of the a fair amount of the out area with Situate.
Yes.
We don't pay any attention to it because it's really not in their ground zero there, but that might end up helping us generate some more funding.
Yes.
They've done a lot of nice work at their harbor. They've done a lot of they've done some grants, so that might be another way to spend this. So just that's all I can tell you.
And I have to say, just with the items that you've raised, they seem to be extremely interested in getting the application from us in November.
Right.
So I was not discouraged when I talked to the folks. They said, you guys are good candidates for this program.
I mean, the governor was down on Sunday, and his comment was, "It's a beautiful place. It's even nicer than Swampscott." That's pretty nice. So,
He's a former selectman there,
almost like
too.
in Swampscott.
He lives there too.
Did anybody get that on record?
I
He
hope
said
somebody
it.
got it. I heard it.
I heard it, all right. Anything else on this?
No.
Okay, I plan to go on this, Jack, should I post a meeting for this, is my next question.
I'm gonna be in Maine all week, so.
I'm actually gonna try to get there.
So I'm
It's
gonna
my
post this
business
as a
week, so I
fact-finding
think we
issue.
should
So we can
post it.
coordinate, yeah, we should post it.
I'm gonna post it as
Sam Wakeman wants to come, and I think Lori Gibbons is gonna come too.
Great.
Okay, Tracy, could you give me then tomorrow a suggested run by Chris, a posting of this
What's the
as a
date?
fact finding
Tuesday.
mission.
Next Tuesday at
next
9:30?
We're not
We're
providing
gonna be there at
transportation.
10
anybody-
o'clock we
Say
start.
again, I'm sorry?
We're not providing transportation, anybody wants to go though.
Yeah, I'll drive.
It'll be a private, yeah.
No, I meant that if anybody wants to follow us.
Public, no.
I wish they're gonna have to come on their own.
So
There's no bus.
So I'm just saying, if you could do the agenda, run it by, Chris, once he said,
Well,
okay.
we're gonna post it, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make one more point. Downtown Harwich has really done a nice job developing the commercial area. I was talking to some of the selectmen offline today. I think it would be worth it for us after we do this to spend a little bit of time walking through Harwich downtown. I'd also like us to take a little field trip to Chatham. And so I grew up in Chatham, I know the history behind it. I think it'd be worth it for us to take a little walk through downtown Chatham and talk about what they've done to develop that whole area.
Is this on the same trip?
Because it's direct, yeah.
We
it's
do it
direct-
overnight?
No, we don't have to, it'll be quick. Chatham's only like 10 minutes
know, I
away. So, but it's a
And there's no
good,
traffic in the
yeah, and it's,
off-season.
what's that?
There's no traffic in the off-season.
No, it'd be an easy trip.
Okay.
And we go to the Square, I'll buy lunch at the Square. Oh, I can't.
Record, that's in recorded. Anything else? Jack, thank you for bringing this
Yeah.
up, this is productive stuff for us to do. Diane?
I'm gonna go real fast, just to thank the fire department, the police department, and our VSO, Benny Fontaine, for as always, a really well-attended and very somber but robust September 11th ceremony on Sunday. It was a really good turnout for a Sunday afternoon. Just to jump on some of the things Jack was talking about in looking at a lot of the committees, we do have a harbor health committee and a harbor, this might give us an opportunity to start bringing some of those people back together. It's just been, one person sitting on a committee, so that makes me feel good. And I also want to put in your ear, Kevin, just maybe having the OPEB committee come in and talk to us sometime soon, so we can kind of recharge or re-energize or have a discussion about what we need them to do or what we want, what we think needs to get done vis-a-vis OPEB.
Well-
Because we identified the need and we started putting money away. Now what? What's the 3, 5, 1 year for that money?
Okay, that's a good idea. Now, doing this, should we work on the charge ourselves and then invite the people in? Or it seemed to me, we don't wanna bring them in and say, well, let's work, talk, you know what I mean, to make it productive.
I
To follow
don't
through on your
know,
idea.
I don't know that we should work on, it is a selectman appointed committee, but is it in the
Well,
bylaws?
what we could do, to follow up your suggestion, is we can invite them to come to this, to give us an update, and then we'll have a discussion with them and take it from
That's
there.
what I think, yeah.
Is that okay?
So, could I ask a question?
Yes.
Is the purpose to start working on ideas for how we're gonna fund the OPEB liability?
Right, I think, okay, we're putting all this money away and that's great and it's a balance sheet issue, but then what? Like, are we ever gonna start drawing from that? Is that gonna replace certain pieces of our operating budget? I don't understand I wanna at least have that conversation.
Well, I also, I don't want to belabor this. The election is going to make a lot of difference, well, hopefully.
The federal election?
There'll be some degree of, well, I don't know what kind of clarity is coming in.
No.
The fact is, we're not solving this at the Cohasset level. This is gonna be solved at a federal level, at a state level. And I think we're taking steps, we have some initial conversation to make, but I don't think there's really any big steps that we can make on our own at this point, because I think the future is just too uncertain.
It's true, but we have a committee, right?
I disagree. We're not gonna solve it on our own, that's for certain. But the only thing we've done up to this point is made the one structural change we can make. We have no funding plan per se. Nothing that indicates where in the priority this should fall, at what point we're actually encompassing some relief on our arc or expected arc. We don't even know if the arc that we put forward every year and account for actually covers retired teachers or in excess of what the retired teachers need or have needed. Frankly, I think there's a fair amount of examination that we can take on this. Having said that, it's a policy discussion, and I really don't want to go down that road.
And may we
Selectmen
be able to
comment.
have that then when they come? Because I wanna have them come in to be a productive situation too for them.
I would hope we can have
Invite
that
them for some
conversation.
general policy discussion and review.
One consideration would be to have a separate meeting, where we just are, brainstorming, so we're not using up a meeting like this.
Right.
It's up to you to
There's also,
figure it out.
No.
we have long had, well, I should say long, 2 years, we had a selectman liaison to the committee,
Right.
which, you know, on a continuing basis, may make some sense. Anyway.
Okay, I'm all set on update. Paul?
I had the most brief of conversation with the governor on Sunday. Told him that we have a great town here. My big push was the opioid problem, hoping we can get some help from the state level. It has not slowed down at South Shore Hospital. It has not slowed down in the overall numbers. There's fentanyl and norfentanyl and sufentanil that are out there, which are potent mixes. So I'm hoping that the governor will be able to help us out with a little bit of assistance, however he can do it. Working on a grant through the South Shore Hospital for screening for what's out there for fentanyl. And it's not gonna treat it well, you know.
Good, thank you. Steve?
I'm gonna leap ahead to get this in before 10:30, because there are people that told me that they're watching to make sure this is aired. So,
Go.
each of you received an email from a resident around the harbor, recording a fairly high level of noise coming from one of the entertainment venues around the harbor. I suspect that we're going to hear a complaint come forward from the residents generally. I simply am airing it because the previous management at that venue is now gone, and there apparently is no basis or line of communication for a good neighbor policy, which we were assured was going to take place. I'm simply the messenger
Before you
on
switch
this
up
one.
on that, I don't remember getting an email to that.
You did. It's
Yeah, we did. I
Yeah.
saw it.
And it's got two videos attached to it.
It was sent on September 8th,
Okay.
last
The
Thursday.
second item, and I gotta leap forward as well, last couple of days, I made Chris aware of this and shown him some videos. I will share those with each of you, videos that I've taken of cars parked on the sidewalk, obliterating the sidewalk all the way up Norfolk. Okay, now, Norfolk is a typical route for me to go home, so it's where I notice it. This is on any day in the week, it's not just soccer days. Soccer days, it becomes really obnoxious. I simply want to take this time to make sure that the residents are aware, and unfortunately, our newspaper, intrepid newspaper reporter is gone. I would like to see if we can get a note in that paper that reminds people that it's our own bylaw that to impede any sidewalk is a ticketable offense, all right? In the event that common sense didn't overwhelm you and help you to recognize that blocking a sidewalk is not a good idea, all right? It's not a good idea, and it's a ticketable offense, and I would encourage that we find a way to start enforcing our own parking regulations. One element of parking regulations is an important consideration with respect to our businesses in the downtown. We've talked about that endlessly and done not much. And we do need to come up with a better solution there. But this is a quality of life issue. I don't live on Norfolk, but I gotta tell you, one resident chewed my ear off, and then I said, wait, whoa, hey, here's a way to deal with it. And she said to me, and how would you know? I said, well, I'm a selectman. She goes, oh, okay, that's good. You know, now who do I talk to again? So I suspect that you'll probably be hearing about it. The point is, these are the residents, and they're ticked off, all right? They don't know where to turn. So we've got to start enforcing our own regulations. The third element, because it belongs in here, is we're well past 15 days on a new manager application under our licensing board. I'd simply like an update on where that is, because if we're not going to enforce the regulations, we shouldn't adopt them.
You're talking about Atlantica?
I'm talking about Atlantica.
That's in my piece here.
You gonna address that point?
I'll be eager to hear about it, but I'm actually talking about that with respect to the board as a body. Remember, this is our charge.
But they did file the application within 15 days.
That's, and from my perspective, that's nice. If you're gonna file the application within 15 days, that's the notification of a hearing. Right? Whether or not we've done the background, at the very least, we should have an understanding of who's been presented. Chris, that's not to you.
No.
My comment's not to you.
I'm just here to give you an update. I think that.
That's right. I'll let you jump on that and give it in full. I'm simply stating my own opinion on it. All right. Last but not least, you'd asked at the last meeting that I put together an introductory note so that folks would understand what it was that we were doing with the mission statement. So I drafted the following, and then noticed, of course, that never proved it.
And this is something, that would be sent out to all the various committees and boards and,
Yeah, it's
Whatnot.
essentially explaining the purpose.
yeah.
And I think also, too, we discussed this, so that when we're talking to boards or whatever it is, when this comes up, we've got something that we can use, either to read to them or use as talking points, so fine. Is this all acceptable with the exception of this typo?
What'd I miss, Jack?
Oh, we got all kinds of typos.
Hey, listen, you know, I blasted through this with a sandwich in my hand, okay?
Okay, any commentary or how, do you wanna do anything further with this, or do you want?
Yeah, I think it needs to be proofread.
Or do you wanna do that? Do you wanna do that, or do you want?
No, I'd like a separate pair of eyes to take it on.
We'll have the clerk do it.
Can I take out in the third paragraph, take out we and put on the board of selectmen employees?
Where is this?
Third paragraph, fifth word, take that out with the board of selectmen employees.
Or we resolve to employ this statement as our, I think you meant it as a verb,
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, I see, so.
No, I didn't. I meant it as a noun, our resolve, we have resolve.
Our resolve, right.
Okay?
Okay, so.
Doesn't matter, you write it so it flows, okay?
So, do you wanna do that, Diane, as the
Sure.
clerk?
Yeah.
And then just send out what'll be the final copy on this, okay?
Or resolve.
Thank you.
Hmm?
Thank you, Steve, for doing this.
Sure, Diane, you get the Word copy in your inbox,
I know.
okay?
Yep,
So
thanks.
hack it up.
Yep.
Okay,
I won't have.
the next will be the town manager update.
So
Chris.
before Mary went on vacation, she sent me a set of materials on July and August. What I'm just circulating is just just one aspect of it, which is just the quick, charts and graphs. It's really early, there's really not a lot to see. So there really isn't anything to show a trend particularly. Water and sewer was built up over this period last year, but it's still very, very early. Our electric costs in August were up, which is a surprise, considering how hot it was. But the prices, we're about to go into a new contract this fall, it's gonna drop our rates, so we should start to see some improvements on electric rates. And again, these all show, by the way, the July and August are one bill, that's the reason you're seeing, no July for the utilities. And, overtime so far has been, on time, on schedule, I should say. Again, just to remind everybody, we are down 2 firefighters, however, one we're in the process of replacing, one is on, injured on duty leave. So, we are gonna probably have a little bit of a tightness right there, so. I will circulate the rest of the materials, the spreadsheets and all that stuff under separate email. Yes.
The other night, when we met, we heard from the finance director that sewer revenues were off 5%. I think it was a part of the narrative as well. This doesn't seem to show that.
No, that's from last year. This is that was the close of fiscal 16. This is now the beginning of fiscal 17.
Oh, right.
Right.
So year over year, you actually show a substantial increase?
Well, between last year and this year, they're up about $100,000. Now, I think something that may have happened here is a lag in collection, and that sometimes happens.
Collection or posting?
No, not posting. Postings are always set to the end of the fiscal year. But there are people who, remember, people don't think in a fiscal year manner. They pay in a calendar year manner.
Right.
So sometimes people are, I gotta tell you, I don't understand it. I really don't claim to understand it.
Okay.
And I'm gonna probably have someone look at this a little bit more thoroughly, because I don't understand why sewer has these funny little waves. But I did hear someone today, someone was asking, you wanna pay that on a monthly or quarterly basis? So with some bills, I guess we'll have to pay that way. So I don't know.
Have we ever thought of smoothing the cash flow?
We actually do have pretty smooth cash flow.
No, on utilities. Water and sewer go into a monthly basis.
It may, you mean monthly bill as opposed to quarterly billings? That might be more expensive for the generation, but I do know if we could do electric meter reading, radio remote reading, as opposed to on presence, we could do a monthly very easily.
Water has had installed that years ago, and apparently never uses it, because I can tell you that I will get the bill, it'll tell me what my estimated use is, I'll go down and look at the meter, and I'm not even there yet.
Okay.
So you get free water for.
Well, they're actually in the
No,
process
no,
of.
I've been
No,
billed,
they're-
I've been
they're
billed
actually-
in advance for
They're-
months.
They're
That's what I'm saying,
actually
free water.
beginning, no, they've never fully installed radio read meters, they're not everywhere. They're actually starting to upgrade their systems as part of their cash, so hopefully we'll get there. Because actually, the service bills really just roll off the water bills anyway, unless there's no water there, in which
Right.
case the rest of us. So that's that. And I'll have more materials, but it's very early, but so far, so good.
Interesting, it's the off cycle for the motor vehicle excise taxes.
Yes.
And they're up.
They're up a
Which is
little
kinda nice. So
yeah.
that would mean that often as it's new cars or off of lease or the common that are not paid during the year, because those would be relatively new cars, if it's an excise bill that's to be paid in the middle of the
Yeah,
year.
and
Because
people
most
do buy
excise
cars
are-
off cycle, so.
Right, so these are new cars.
Hopefully we'll see yours showing up there soon.
No, mine'll be there too, but they're new cars, so comparatively, because off-season cycle
Yes.
excise are new cars, which means your new cars are, there's quite a few of them.
So, but that's where we are on that. As you probably know, the phone system at the middle school, high school failed last week. It is an old Centrex system, and despite repeated attempts at repair, it has not been successful. So there's been some interim patches done, so they have 911 access. And there's a couple of lines in the office and leading into the administrative office, the central office upstairs. But it's not fixable. Ron had spec'd out a system, and we've been working on spec'ing out a system and coming to special town meeting. At this point, with the situation being an emergency, we're going to have to move forward on the middle high school separately. So I've asked the advisory committee to come into a meeting, to call a meeting so we can get funds released. I'm going to sit down with capital and go over with them just where we are. But putting more money into the system, even if they could find a part that works, is not cost effective. Now, the one positive of this is that it would accelerate. It would accelerate the process on it, right? Because the brain would have to be installed, the server piece, which would cover the town anyway. So to make the system work. So the good news is, it turns out the building is actually pretty well wired, so it's not going to take up any real wiring changes. The building has acceptable wiring in it to just replace the sets. And remember, it's not just phones for the high school; it's bells, it's intercom. There's a lot of other aspects that the system ran that the new one will do as well, but they have to have that. So tonight they're having an open school night with no bells and stuff to change classes and no intercom. So they were a little uncertain about going to that. So hopefully people had a good time there tonight, and hopefully it was a little experience.
Oh, you're
But
off. Shut down.
so, but we are gonna have to move on. It's one of those things that no one expected that to fail, but it did, and so
What's the anticipated cost?
about $100,000. And again, that's because there's a core of it that has to be fixed as well. So,
How old is it?
the Signet system, I have no idea.
Way back.
I guess we quite,
It's gotta be 15 years old at least.
At least, yeah.
I mean, they literally were getting
That was
motherboard,
even
something got
before
flown in
the,
from Alaska, something got
refurbishments
flown in
of
from
the high
Maine,
school.
or driven in from Maine.
And that was nice.
And the company,
It's all
the
over.
company said, oh, we'll upgrade it to a new system of ours now.
Copper wire with
The system, by the way, has been looked at, is on state contract. This is all on state contract price, and it's been vetted, so, but they're at a point where they have to do something right now, so that's in progress. It's not the way we would prefer to do things, but we're in a place where there really is a lot of interest. To go to the point where we started, so the Atlantic, the owners of the Atlantic have filed an application for a new manager. It's gone to the police, and they were prepared to set a public hearing date. And Bornberger and DeLisi have been retained again. There was a great deal of uncertainty as to what was going on and who was doing what, and who was talking to whom. So it's now clarified again after a lot of conversation, a lot of discussions privately. So they filed everything. The police have reviewed it to this point. Everything to this point seems to be okay with the proposed manager. We are still watching very closely the schedules and who's scheduled to be where, and there are some materials which we'll present to the board before. My strong recommendation is to maintain our special counsel for liquor license matters, Mr. Lamke. The challenge of Mr. Lamke's availability is a bit challenged because we're not his only client. So his availability.
So what is our role here that we need to do? They've made the application now, we need to.
You need to hold a public hearing.
We need to have a public hearing to review and approve or disapprove for the new manager. And if we did approve, then we've done it, then they move on, right?
To go to the ABCC.
And then they go to ABC, okay. And what would they be applying for this manager to be, Atlantic or just?
Just Atlantica.
And so who's
Mr. Hool.
who's doing this, Atlantic or the Salt House, right?
Correct.
And then who's doing the
The inn?
hotel, is that?
Yeah, that's the same
House.
gentleman was approved, Mr. Hool.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so he'd stay there doing that, and then the, who we have, Lucian's is in.
Is at Red Lion.
Is a Red Lion, so we're looking at this. Okay, so what is the law here? They've made their application, is there a time we have to do a hearing?
We're supposed to schedule within 30 days.
They make their application within 15 of the departure, but
Correct.
tell us within 24 hours who the appointee is. We were notified by someone not in the chain of command that the appointee was Bob Poole, who we already said
Right.
can run one place but not two.
He was in the chain of command. He actually is, he is a corporate officer of the Atlantic, so
All right, fair enough.
I did verify that, so he was in the chain of command.
All right, and he appointed by letter Bob Poole
As an interim.
as an interim. We said, as a matter of policy, there is no way that we would let one person run two places.
Right, we've already done that, yeah.
Right, but they did it. As a matter of fact, we didn't do anything. They did it. They told us what they were doing. And as a matter of construct, we are the licensing board. We haven't even scheduled a hearing for it, and frankly, at that outset, we should have scheduled the hearing, because I gotta tell you, you gotta wonder why this guy wants to feel like he can run roughshod over the licensing authority. If I were him, I'd think the same thing.
Okay,
He
so-
told us he told us basically who was gonna manage the place. He didn't say, here's what we propose, here's why we need special dispensation, we need anything.
Technically speaking, they follow the rules. Now, again, you as a board are absolutely able to question their decisions when they come in front of you, and you can ask questions, and you can probe, but now a hearing needs to be scheduled. Mr. Lamke is not available on the 27th, your regularly next scheduled meeting. I have 5 dates in the next 4 weeks.
And in doing any one of these dates, we're conforming with the law. I wanna make sure we're conforming
Yes.
with the law, okay? All right, what are the dates? Everybody get their
The
calendars?
20th of September and the 21st of September, which is next Tuesday or Wednesday. It doesn't sound like you're available.
But if you've got a quorum, move.
So
We're
next-
in
next
Harwich on
Tuesday?
the 20, how about the 21st, folks? That's next Wednesday? We okay? Going
okay.
once, going
If
to,
it's possible to make it at 7:30,
yeah.
just because my work situation is pretty intense next week.
Be fine with me, because we're just gonna do the hearing.
27?
21st, we're looking at. 21st?
That work,
Is
Paul?
okay with you? Diane?
Yes.
Kevin?
So
Paul?
right now, do they have a
God,
valid
you do it.
liquor license? Can they
Okay.
serve alcohol?
Yes.
My son's getting married, so
On the 21st?
we're gone. No, he's getting married that week, and since we're the parents of the groom, we're gone.
Yeah. All right, well, what do we do then?
First, I could do.
Oh, you got a quorum.
Just you got a quorum, let's go.
Go.
Yeah. You wanna phone in? You have the option to phone in?
I don't know. I have no idea what my schedule's gonna be.
If you
Kevin,
wanna
so-
phone in.
Yeah.
You can.
I'll let
can.
you know.
Yeah, let us know.
All
if you-
right, so we're gonna do this 21st,
21st, yeah.
and it's gonna be at the
7:30?
7:30, okay?
Okay.
So could you do an agenda for me to look at that will
Yep.
reflect that? Now, we don't have a quorum, well, we will have a quorum, do we wanna cover anything else that night, since we're together for half an hour, or just do this?
The only thing that I would bring in front of you that night, if it was necessary, would be if there was a critical timing, and the residents say to us, where we wanna pay for 100% of the betterment, can you let us do it?
Okay,
That's the
so,
only thing, and I would only do that if there was no other choice, and we couldn't do it on the 27th.
so you get that date, you can do that. Nothing else we wanna do that night,
You're-
folks, right?
Be aware, though, you have citizens along the harbor who have reported these noise complaints. Police have record of it. Don't be surprised if they show up
Well,
for
we
comment.
could schedule as a separate, if the board is interested, you could schedule a follow-up with that night.
No, my point in this is that the two are actually unrelated. They're related to a degree, but the noise piece actually would fall under the administration of the entertainment license, right? My point, what I'm saying is, don't be surprised if you've got public comment coming forward.
Okay, my feeling would be that night we're gonna focus and do the liquor thing. And then, we'll see if, in following whatever procedures, because we need to have a record of what the complaints are, and we'll decide whether it rises to the level of a hearing.
But you, yeah, that.
But you're warning us that may occur.
Well, no, the administration of a separate hearing is, that's the determination of the board.
Right.
I'm just saying that you've got a bunch of people that are hot under the collar, and by law, we've got to accept the public comment.
Oh, we do, so.
Oh, in a hearing, yeah.
So, I know, but if we're doing a hearing on liquor, do we have to accept a comment on entertainment?
No, you may get the comment, you may have to shut it down.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So why don't I do this is, we'll work with Lemke and you to see, but my inclination will be, we're gonna focus on doing the liquor issue, okay?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, no, that's, yes, absolutely.
All right, Diane?
Just one thing that, I don't think we should discuss it, but based on our liquor regulations, a schedule of the hours of the managers should be made immediately available upon the request of the board or its authorized agents. So I just, as a selectman, I would like to know that we have that, maybe just send it out, that I wanna see it, just, so-and-so, these are the hours of the restaurant this week, and this is who is the license manager on site.
There's a number of exhibits that you will all have that you will be able to review, and then make comments on.
So that'll
That
include.
bear directly on the license.
So that'll include an answer to Diane's question? Okay, so that'll be in the package that they present?
Yeah.
And-
Okay, so we'll see that on the 27th.
And are we within our time frame for a posted hearing? I mean, we can
We
do
don't
it
have to
next
post
Tuesday?
this.
Okay,
We don't have to advertise this, we
Okay.
have to post it, we don't have to advertise.
great.
Okay, so why don't we set up the meeting, let's just set, and we'll post it, give me the agenda on it,
Yep.
we'll post that. Those two. All right,
We're posting the 20th as that special trip.
you post the 20th, the special trip, and then the 21st for
trip.
this, and then our next meeting is on the 27th, which will just,
Again, just to remind you, I will not physically be here for that meeting, I will be in Kansas City. But Lisa is gonna be sitting in for me for administrative purposes only, not as the acting town manager. But she'll be here to discuss goals, and I'm gonna try to see if there's other things on the agenda that make a good fit for her to be here anyway.
yeah, so we'll work on that, and also if we do make any changes, and what you give us, she'll do the changes, not us, just so that's,
Yeah.
yeah, she'll be taking the
She'll be here to do
notations
all
on that,
that.
yeah. All right, anything else? Okay, nothing else there, and, items unanticipated within the last 48 hours, I have none. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
You sure do.
Second.
And, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, that was unanimous, Tracy.